Hello everyone, I'm very glad that you listened to my story. Please give me a follow and like the video if you enjoyed it. Feel free to comment and provide feedback so I can improve the sound quality. Yes, we invite you to listen to part 3 of the series. Chapter 37, 037, Unbelievable Incident. Chapter 37, Chapter 037, Unbelievable Incident. As expected, being ignored by Zhuang Qingning, Zhuang Qinghe felt like her punch had landed on cotton, suffocating her with extreme discomfort. She wanted to grab Zhuang Qingning and ask her clearly why she had ignored her in such a way. Did she look down on her? A girl without parents, daring to ignore her, failing to take her seriously. The more Zhuang Qinghe thought about it, the angrier she got. The rage in her stomach all rolled up to her heart, making her chest hurt. She wished she could immediately find someone to quarrel with so she would get some relief. However, Zhuang Wenqing had already left while speaking, and Zhuang Qinghe feared that if she didn't follow, she wouldn't hear any sweet words Brother Wenqing would say to her. Therefore, she disregarded Zhuang Qingning and quickly followed him. Along the way, Zhuang Qinghe followed Zhuang Wenqing, walking slowly, glancing at him from time to time, fearing he might catch her looking at him and quickly lowering her head. Her careful thoughts turned her cheeks a bright red. "Brother Wenqing, do you have something to say to me?" Seeing Zhuang Wenqing staying silent for a long time, Zhuang Qinghe couldn't bear it anymore and initiated the conversation. Well, Zhuang Wenqing scratched his ear, "Actually, there's nothing much. It's getting late, and I'm reminding you to go home for dinner. I need to go back for lunch too." With that said, he left quickly without giving Zhuang Qinghe any chance to stop him. It was only when Zhuang Qinghe regained her composure that she could only see Zhuang Wenqing's figure gradually receding in the distance. Brother Wenqing, Zhuang Qinghe hadn't heard the words she wanted to hear and now saw Zhuang Wenqing walking away again. She felt disappointed and annoyed, so she hurried to catch up with him, hoping to have a proper conversation. But Zhuang Wenqing walked swiftly, and Zhuang Qinghe, being chubby and short-legged, had to stop to catch her breath after a few steps. When she looked up again, he was nowhere in sight. Zhuang Qinghe stomped her foot in annoyance. It was rare for Zhuang Wenqing to come back home from the county town, so it was extremely annoying that she couldn't spend more time with him. However, on second thought, Zhuang Wenqing didn't usually pay much attention to her, but now he wanted to speak to her alone, even when Zhuang Qingning was around. Didn't that mean Zhuang Wenqing values her more than Zhuang Qingning? As for the reason why he didn't speak much, probably because Zhuang Wenqing was shy, and too embarrassed to express his feelings. Once Zhuang Qinghe realized this, she couldn't contain her joy. She could not stop smiling and happily went home. After Zhuang Wenqing had walked a good distance and saw that Zhuang Qinghe had not followed him, he breathed a sigh of relief and slowed down. He had just deliberately asked Zhuang Qinghe to walk alone, knowing her nature. He knew she would be overjoyed, thinking she had surpassed Zhuang Qingning, and hopefully, she would then cease to bother Zhuang Qingning at will. However, Zhuang Qingning might misunderstand something, and he would probably have to find a chance to explain the matter to her. While Zhuang Wenqing walked towards his home, thinking about what had just happened, a voice spoke up. "Wenqing, why are you back so late?" Zhuang Wenqing's mother, Mrs. Wang, asked. He was considering matters when he was suddenly called, startling him and whitening his face. It took him a while to regain his composure. "Mother, you scared me, suddenly shouting like that. You were already walking towards me when I called you. Can that scare you?" Mrs. Wang saw Zhuang Wenqing's face turning pale, and she frowned in surprise. "What happened to you? You look like you've lost your soul." "Well, one just came back from Uncle's house and ran into Zhuang Qinghe. One was afraid she would cling to me again, so I quickly made an excuse to get away. On the way back, I was thinking about how hiding like this isn't a solution, and that one needed to find a way to handle it. I was deep in thought when you startled me." Zhuang Wenqing didn't mention Zhuang Qingning at all, only talking about Zhuang Qinghe. Upon hearing this, Mrs. Wang's eyebrows furrowed even more. That Zhuang Qinghe, she really has no shame. At this age she still doesn't know about gender etiquette. Gender should be separated at the age of 7. Although in their rural areas there aren't so many rules, it's not improper for boys and girls to work and talk together. But Zhuang Qinghe wore her heart on her sleeve, and anyone with eyes could see it. With Zhuang Qinghe's entanglement, Zhuang Wenqing's reputation was at stake. When searching for a good matchmaker in the future, he will probably be affected by this. As a mother, this was what she hated to see the most. That Mrs. Song also has no rules, she doesn't care what her daughter's doing, isn't she ashamed? One guess she's just trying to latch onto our family because we're doing well, isn't she embarrassed? And she dares not look at herself, being dark, fat, and ugly, how is she worthy of my son Wenqing? Mrs. Wang, with her wheat straw temper, talked a blue streak. After venting her anger, she turned to Zhuang Wenqing and said, from now on, when you see Zhuang Qinghe don't be polite. People like her are like dog skin plasters. The more you're concerned about your dignity and embarrassed, the more she will pester you. She doesn't have the face, so why should you be polite to her? Yes, mother's words make sense. I'll listen to my mother. I won't be polite to her from now on. Seeing Mrs. Wang disliking Zhuang Qinghe too, Zhuang Wenqing grinned. Hearing her son was well-behaved made Mrs. Wang very relieved, that's right. Listening to your mother is definitely the right thing to do. However, speaking of Zhuang Qinghe, it reminds me of something. Did you go to see Zhuang Qingning today apart from going to your uncle's house? Seeing Mrs. Wang's smile gradually fade, Zhuang Wenqing didn't respond directly and instead counter-asked, Mother, why are you suddenly asking this? Why? Isn't it because I'm afraid you're only thinking about that girl Zhuang Qingning? Mrs. Wang rolled her eyes at her son impatiently. There's no such thing, Zhuang Wenqing said, but he guiltily lowered his head, his eyes fixed on his toes. Having none would be best. Mrs. Wang still sounded unwell, but seeing her son's unhealthy complexion, she changed her tone and spoke earnestly, I'm not saying that Ning is not good. She's hardworking and honest, which is good. But she's been without parents since she was little, which shows that she has a tricky life. Even if she doesn't harm her husband in the future, she's still prone to harm others. She can be dangerous /PNGT. And if we talk about blood relations, although they may be distant, they're still of the same surname, and live in the same village. It's very uncomfortable, and it's easy for others to ridicule. The most important thing is, Zhuang Qingning is a woman who has her own household. Chapter 38, 038 Third Young Master. Chapter 38, Chapter 038 Third Young Master. Having established her own household, she was extremely independent and even managed to persuade Mrs. Wen to rent her the tofu shop. After dealing with Mrs. Wen daily, her temper naturally became like Mrs. Wen's. Mrs. Wang didn't want her beloved youngest son to bring home a daughter-in-law who was hard to manage. In short, forget about this matter. In the future, I will find you a good wife who will definitely be better than that girl Ning, all right. Mother, I'm still young, why are you talking about this so early? Zhuang Wenqing was upset. That Mrs. Wang kept criticizing Zhuang Qingning and disagreed with their relationship. How old are you? You're 14 this year, and when you're 16, it's time for marriage. I'm just telling you the truth. You're already so old, don't you feel shy? Mrs. Wang simply thought Zhuang Wenqing was just being shy, so she decided to tease him. Zhuang Wenqing was not in the mood for jokes. Frowning, he said, Mom, I'm still small. Let's talk about this later. Come on, let's eat. I've been busy all morning and I'm very hungry now. Okay, let's eat. I specifically asked your eldest sister-in-law to make dumplings with green onion and pork filling for you when she was cooking lunch. You rarely come home, you should eat well. Mrs. Wang called her eldest daughter-in-law in the kitchen to cook dumplings as soon as she heard her son was hungry. She then went into the house to call the others to come for lunch. For a moment, Zhuang Wenqing was alone in the courtyard, sitting at a table and bench, waiting to eat dumplings. But all he could think about was what Mrs. Wang said earlier. Mrs. Wang did not like Zhuang Qingning and would certainly not want him to marry her in the future. What should he do? Zhuang Wenqing sighed deeply as he pondered. The small courtyard was exceptionally lively. There were a lot of visitors today, all of them coming with congratulatory wishes and gifts. Zhou Xueming greeted and entertained them, keeping himself very busy. An impressively high-class carriage parked in front of the small courtyard. A man in his 30s, who behaved like a steward, stepped out of the carriage. After standing steady on the ground, he extended his hand to carefully assist the other person in the carriage to get down. This person was an 8 or 9-year-old boy. Although he was young, his appearance was quite handsome, especially his eyes, which were sparkling with radiant light. His noble clothes highlighted his extraordinary status. The boy had a distinct aura of grandeur, suggesting that he came from a powerful and wealthy family. The people in the small courtyard kept quiet as soon as they saw such a distinguished person at the gate. Even when they looked, they dared only steal glances, fearing to be discovered by the boy. Upon seeing the visitors, Zhou Xueming quickly apologized to his other guests. "I have to excuse myself for a moment to receive an important guest." Before others could respond, he hurried to the gate and greeted the steward. "Mr. Ning." "Mr. Zhou." Ning Feng replied with a bow. Then Zhou Xueming half-squatted and spoke to the boy in a low voice. "Third young master, why are you here?" He was extremely respectful, but also showed the affection typical of an older person. "Since I am your student and it's the old lady's birthday, I should come to send my congratulations," Chu Jianzhou said respectfully. He signaled Ning Feng to bring a gift box over. "This is a birthday gift for the old lady. May her happiness be as vast as the eastern sea and her life as long as the southern mountains." "Thank you, third young master." Zhou Xueming didn't dare to slack off and received the gift box with both hands. It's a little chaotic at home with so many people. Considering the third young master's noble status, it's not suitable for you to go there. I will not invite you in for tea. But according to the house rules set by my mother, anyone who comes for her birthday should eat a bowl of tofu ball soup. Although we can't compare with the chef at your residence, the tofu we use today is not bad. One hope you don't mind. When my teacher offers a meal, how could I decline? How about I send Mr. Ning to get it and I'll wait in the carriage?" Chu Jianzhou answered with a smile. His words were both courteous and dignified, like a mature adult. Zhou Xueming chuckled. "Please wait a moment, third young master." He then turned to Ning Feng. "Could one trouble you to come with me?" "To get it?" "You're too courteous, Mr. Zhou." Ning Feng bowed slightly, then helped Chu Jianzhou settle in the carriage, instructing the carriage driver to keep an eye on the boy, before following Zhou Xueming into the courtyard. The people in the courtyard all watched expectantly, not daring to speak or approach when they saw the steward entering. They dutifully cleared a path. In the kitchen, Zhou Xueming found a lidded soup bowl, filled it with the freshly cooked tofu ball soup, sprinkled some coriander on top, added a bit of vinegar and a few drops of sesame oil, then packed it in a food box with a soup spoon, and handed it to Ning Feng. "I appreciate your help, Mr. Ning," Zhou Xueming said, deliberately lowering his voice. "May I ask if the eldest young master? Did he know about third young master's visit?" The eldest young master was aware of it. Even the birthday gift brought by the third young master today was selected from the eldest young master's treasury after consultation. Ning replied. In other words, this gift represented not only the intentions of Chu Jianzhou but also those of Chu Jinyan. Zhou Xueming's eyes misted over, turning slightly red. "Please thank the eldest young master for me. Despite the mistake I made in the past, he didn't despise me and even let me teach the third young master. This deep affection. I really. Indeed, I owe Chu Jinyan, and I also owe my conscience." Zhou Xueming choked up and couldn't express the rest of his feelings. "Mr. Zhou," Ning Feng's voice rose slightly. "The eldest young master once said that things in the past should be left in the past. Since he has already forgiven you, the issue is settled. If you continue to dwell on it, it will weigh heavily on your conscience, and the eldest young master will not feel at ease." "Yes, what you said is true, Mr. Ning." Zhou Xueming sniffled and suppressed his tears, then escorted Ning Feng out. It was only when he saw Chu Jianzhou, who had poked his head out from the carriage, that the smile returned to Zhou Xueming's face. The third young master should leave for the mansion now. In a few days, after I have settled matters at home, one will continue to give you lessons. The homework I assigned must be completed punctually every day. If you haven't completed it by the time I come to check, I won't hesitate to hit your palms. On hearing this, Chu Jianzhou, who had been smiling all this time, looked a bit forced as he agreed, patting his chest to assure that he would complete his homework. Chapter 39, 039, Do you remember? Chapter 39, Chapter 039, Do you remember? Noticing that it was getting late, Ning Feng and Zhou Xueming didn't want Chu Jianzhou to linger too much and instructed the carter to hurry away in the carriage. Zhou Xueming watched the carriage recede into the distance before returning to the small courtyard to attend to the other guests. Zhou Xueming didn't voluntarily discuss Chu Jianzhou's earlier presence, and no one else dared to ask either. It was only a young man who had accompanied his master to the gathering that asked in a whisper once Zhou Xueming had entered the main hall, who was that imposing person just now, and what kind of an influential person would Zhou Xueming know? You are young and wouldn't know. Zhou Xueming was highly esteemed in the past, having passed the imperial examination, and even held a post in the capital city. We may not understand his exact status, but it was undoubtedly a prestigious one, someone explained in a low voice. Another person added, he came back to the countryside, however, teaching, after being framed for being too virtuous and upright. But Zhou Xueming is well learned and respected by many, attracting the attention of an influential figure who invited him to tutor his young son. It's likely the man who came just now is that student of Zhou Xueming's. I see, the young man said with sudden enlightenment, his eyes full of admiration and envy. Zhou Xueming is really impressive. Naturally. You should spend more time with him and try to establish ties with some influential people. If you succeed, you'll soar high in life, someone joked. But no one responded to that comment. Today, those who came to celebrate Zhou Xueming's mother's birthday may have partly come with such intentions, but just keeping such thoughts would be just that. This blatant expression, nevertheless, gave people an impression of low taste and unworthiness. The gathering went cold and the person who made the comment was left looking foolish. He laughed awkwardly and sought others to talk to. As if nothing had happened, the small courtyard once again resumed being lively. Zhou Xueming entered his mother's room to check on her condition. Seeing that the old lady looked quite fine, he looked at the bustling courtyard outside and thought of Chu Jianzhou's unexpected visit. He sighed deeply. On the other hand, Zhuang Qingning, seeing Zhuang Qinghe running off after Zhuang Wenqing still fuming, was satisfied. Thinking that her disregard earlier must have enraged her to the core, she felt a sense of relief. She entered the tofu shop, added water to the beans, and was ready to make more tofu. Zhuang Qingning soaked an additional 8 jin of beans with the intention to grind more tofu and observe how well it would sell the next day. Zhuang Qingning cleaned up and was about to leave after getting everything ready. As soon as she left the tofu shop, she saw Aunt Wen already in the courtyard. Aunt Wen's hair was disheveled, and she had a sleepy look on her face, obviously having just woken up. Did I disturb your sleep, Aunt Wen? I'll be quieter next time, Zhuang Qingning said. Aunt Wen didn't answer and simply walked into the tofu shop and looked at the beans in the vat. You have soaked more beans than usual. The tofu business is going well, so I thought I'd grind more, Zhuang Qingning replied with a smile. But since we're making more tofu, it'll be more difficult carrying it all to the town. I've arranged for a bullock cart to come pick us up early tomorrow morning in town. Aunt Wen didn't say anything, merely giving Zhuang Qingning a glance. Used to Aunt Wen's silence, Zhuang Qingning didn't stay longer and went home. At home, she didn't have the leisure to nap, but instead rushed off to a small mound near the village entrance to collect some earth. She spread it out in her courtyard to dry in the sun. After a refreshing nap in the afternoon, she woke up in the evening, concomitantly grinded the dried earth and got rid of its clumps, sieved it out to get fine yellow earth powder. She mixed the fine powder with salt water, then added the primary salted duck egg making secret recipe powder, finally adding the sieved yellow earth and stirring till it became a uniform thick paste. Once the paste was able to hold a duck egg, with half of it sinking into the paste and half remaining above, the consistency was just perfect. She coated every duck egg with a thin layer of the earth paste and placed it in a large earthenware jar and closed its lid. And with that, the initial stage of the salted duck egg process was complete. Given the current spring weather, the salted duck eggs should be ready in about 30 days. Ding! Congratulations, host, for successfully salt curing 1 duck egg. You just earned 2 portions of the primary salted duck egg making secret recipe powder, and plus 1 proficiency in making salted duck eggs. Once the proficiency level reaches 88, you can unlock the intermediate level secret recipe for making salted duck eggs. Also, warmly reminding you that the secret recipe powder helps shorten the salt curing period of the duck eggs. So, the salt curing period can be halved. The higher the level of the recipe powder, the shorter the period. Not bad. Zhuang Qingning's lips curled into a smile. With this, the salted duck eggs would be ready in about half a month, saving a lot of time. Very impressive. The system is a high-quality system. Proud face. Used to the system's shameless self-praise, Zhuang Qingning took it all in stride, like an old hat. She complimented Xiaowu a few times, then she led Zhuang Qingsui to their naps. Perhaps because they had slept late in the afternoon, when the sisters woke up again, the sky had completely darkened. Hurrying out of bed, they quickly prepared dinner and then rushed to the tofu shop to grind the tofu. Once the hot tofu was ready, Zhuang Qingning set aside tofu pudding and some hot tofu for Aunt Wen and started packing the rest of the tofu to wait for Bai San's arrival. Fearing that Bai San might be unfamiliar with the place and risk not finding Aunt Wen's house, she waited for him outside Aunt Wen's house early on. Soon enough, Bai San arrived with the bullock cart. On seeing Zhuang Qingning, he gave a wide smile. One was worried I might be too early. Turns out, you are even earlier. I was just about to wait here, lest you have trouble finding the place. As soon as I took my position, you arrived, Zhuang Qingning retorted with a smile, leading Bai San to Aunt Wen's house. This is the place? Bai San asked in surprise after he parked the bullock cart. Jingning, are you related to Mrs. Wen? Are you her daughter? Uncle Bai, you've misunderstood, Zhuang Qingning explained. I only rented Aunt Wen's tofu shop. We live in the same village but not that close. One know her, but that's it. Oh, Bai San scratched his ear. You must be quite capable to have rented Mrs. Wen's tofu shop, given her temper. Who said someone has a bad temper? The voice of Aunt Wen suddenly rang out behind Zhuang Qingning. Instantly, Aunt Wen, broom in hand, appeared at the door with an unhappy face. Understandably, anyone being told they have a bad temper will feel uncomfortable, let alone the already notoriously irritable Aunt Wen. Bai San quickly drew back his neck upon realizing he had spoken out of line. Seeing Aunt Wen glaring at him, he awkwardly chuckled. Aunt Wen, long time no see. You still remember this old woman? Aunt Wen snorted. Of course, I remember. How could I forget? Bai San replied, grinning servilely. Aunt Wen, have you been well recently? Chapter 40, 040, Destined. Chapter 40, Chapter 040, Destined. Seeing you, things have gone south. Mrs. Wen glanced at Bai San and said, yesterday afternoon, I heard from this girl that they agreed on someone using a bullock cart to help them deliver tofu to the town, and I wondered who it would be. I didn't expect it to be you. Well, we could call that fate. Yes, fate. Bai San gave a guilty smile, but his heart was sour like a bitter herb. When he learned that the sisters Zhuang Qingning were from NG village, he thought of Mrs. Wen's tofu shop, wondering if Zhuang Qingning had anything to do with Mrs. Wen. But looking at the Zhuang sisters, who are peaceful and kind, with a friendly temperament, he thought it was highly unlikely they would have any relationship with the prickly Mrs. Wen, so he had no concerns. Unexpectedly, it turns out that they do have a connection with Mrs. Wen, quite a significant one at that. This put Bai San in a sulky mood as he felt his face freeze from smiling too stiffly. I don't dare to develop any relationship with you. I wouldn't want to get any bad luck or misfortune. Mrs. Wen rolled her eyes again, took her broom, and went to sweep the courtyard. She seemed to be unwilling to say another word to Bai San. Seeing this, Bai San murmured "Ba" under his breath, feeling a long sigh of relief. Then he hurriedly helped Zhuang Qingning load the tofu onto the cart, drove the ox away, and left in a hurry. When the bullock cart finally left NG village, Bai San let out another sigh of relief. Zhuang Qingning was quite curious about Bai San's acquaintance with Aunt Wen and the fact that there seemed to be some dispute between them. But since he didn't say anything, she didn't press him. Zhuang Qingsui, however, being young and unable to retain secrets very well, couldn't help but ask. Uncle Bai, do you know Aunt Wen? To say I know her would be an understatement. Earlier when he met Mrs. Wen, Bai San was completely caught off guard. He thought of the past incidents and was so choked up that he wanted to say something but worried that the sisters might think he was too talkative or ranting, so he didn't say anything. Now that Zhuang Qingsui had asked him, he recounted everything like beans spilling from a bamboo pipe, finally making the whole thing clear to her. This happened a long time ago. Before, Bai San worked as a masonry in town and would take his cart to town early every morning and return in the evening. One day, Bai San was heading to town as usual. But because he had been too tired and had not gotten enough sleep for several days, plus it was still dark in the early morning affecting his vision, he accidentally drove his cart into the one being driven by Mrs. Wen. Mrs. Wen's ox got scared and ran forward like a mad animal, ramming a large tung tree not far away and dying as a result. Bai San admitted his mistake and was certainly willing to compensate for the dead ox and the tofu on Mrs. Wen's cart. However, Mrs. Wen was not satisfied with that, claiming that she couldn't find a suitable ox to buy for the moment, which greatly affected her tofu business. Having to fend for herself and her orphan child, she insisted that Bai San help her deliver tofu to town every day in addition to paying for the ox, so as not to disrupt her tofu selling. Feeling guilty about killing Mrs. Wen's ox and hearing that she was a widow supporting an orphan, Bai San felt even more remorseful. He agreed to deliver tofu for her every morning. However, after several days of doing this, Bai San found that Mrs. Wen had quite a bad temper. If things didn't go her way, she would question and scold him. If someone dared to pay less for the tofu, she would chase them for miles to get her money back, argue with the townspeople, spit out angry words, and even use inappropriate language. Bai San felt he had encountered a plague. He just wanted to give Mrs. Wen more money and be done with her, but Mrs. Wen stubbornly refused. She claimed that since Bai San had made a mistake, he would be more dedicated and careful in his work. If she used the money to hire a cart, it would not satisfy her needs. If Bai San refused, she would accuse him of harassing her. Bai San was simply terrified of Mrs. Wen and had to comply with her demands, until Mrs. Wen finally bought an ox that she was satisfied with. Only then could he be relieved of his burden, always wishing to avoid meeting Mrs. Wen again in the future. Surprisingly, he still met her again, and it was still about delivering tofu to town. Bai San felt that perhaps it was because of his surname that he and tofu were destined to be linked. This happened a long time ago, and meeting her so unexpectedly has made my scalp tingle. After Bai San finished speaking, fearing Zhuang Qingning would worry that he felt unjustly done by and would stop him from delivering tofu in the future, he laughed and said, "But you two don't need to worry about this. After all, it's an incident from many years ago, and everything that should have been returned or given has been settled. I don't owe anything to sister-in-law Wen. She's always been like that." She stings a little with her words. Being criticized won't cost him any flesh, but helping Zhuang Qingning transport the tofu meant he had tofu to eat at lunch. As to which was more important, Bai San knew very well. That's quite a coincidence. Thankfully, we are used to Aunt Wen's daily lecturing. Now we have company. Zhuang Qingsui laughed merrily. The child's innocent comment made Bai San and Zhuang Qingning laugh heartily, making the incident seem like an interesting story. On their way to town, they settled Zhuang Qingning and Zhuang Qingsui at their usual tofu selling spot. Bai San, driving the bullock cart and holding the big piece of tofu he purchased himself, went cheerfully to his work site. Looking at the tofu basket today, which was fuller than usual, Mrs. Lu couldn't help but smile. "You've finally been willing to grind more, but you didn't grind much. I'm afraid it's still not enough. Even if it's not enough, it's better. It'll make people long for it." Zhuang Qingning returned the smile and winked. Mrs. Lu immediately understood what she meant, and her eyes also lit up with laughter. "That's true." The sun slowly ascended in the sky, and the streets became busy. Their tofu business was as good as before, with a constant stream of customers. Zhuang Qingning and Zhuang Qingsui, with smiling faces, greeted the tofu buyers. They were so occupied that they couldn't even spare a moment to wipe the sweat off their foreheads. Li Fang, on the other hand, wiped the sweat off his forehead. It wasn't the tiredness from work or the heat, but fear. Ever since someone flipped a table at Fushan Tower, Feng Yongkong had been trying to figure out what made the braised tofu taste different that day. Chef Zhang was also upset about it. Despite their efforts, they hadn't found a conclusive reason after several days. Ma Tong had not reported Li Fang behind his back. Li Fang appreciated it and also thought that no one else saw him taking the tofu to the kitchen that day. Even if it was investigated in Fushan Tower, no one would blame him. But the truth can't be concealed forever, and there are no walls without chinks in the world. Ma Tong can't guarantee that he will keep his mouth shut. As the tofu stall on the street was getting more and more popular, more and more people were buying tofu there and tasting it. If one day Feng Yongkong or Chef Zhang were to taste it, that would inevitably cause an upheaval in Fushan Tower, and his job would certainly come to an end. Li Fang shivered uncontrollably, and his face turned grim. "What's wrong with you? Your face is so pale, and you're sweating so much." Ma Tong, holding a broom, had just finished cleaning the main entrance. Chapter 41, 041 Thunderstorm. Chapter 41, Chapter 041 Thunderstorm. Feng Yongkong had said that when the entrance is clean and tidy, customers perceive the restaurant as clean and would be willing to patronize. The wealth god doesn't patronize dirty places. That was what he meant. Huh. Li Fang was startled by the sudden conversation and was terrified. His face was increasingly pinched, and fearing others might see something amiss, he repeatedly waved his hands. No, I guess I didn't cover myself properly while sleeping last night and caught a chill. My stomach, it hurts so much now. Could you help me keep an eye on things? The pain is so intense, I need to go to the pharmacy at the corner to get some medicine. Upon seeing Li Fang's grimacing face, Ma Tong hurriedly said, hurry up. This is exactly what you should fear in the spring. Better to take some medicine and prevent it from developing into a serious illness. I will keep an eye on things here. Go. Thanks a lot, brother. Li Fang expressed his gratitude to Ma Tong with a glance, handed him the cleaning cloth, and then quickly rushed off. He headed towards the corner of the street, but instead of entering the pharmacy, he disappeared down a small alleyway. Ma Tong caught a glimpse of this and smirked, the broom in his hand making swooshing sounds. Stomachache. It was nothing but bad intentions. These kinds of people were deserving of divine retribution. Ma Tong cursed in his heart, glanced at Zhuang Qingning's tofu stall and sighed. She was indeed at fault here. A few coins could have solved everything, but instead, things were blown out of proportion. If the tofu stall can't continue doing business, he wouldn't know what to do. Zhuang Qingning was oblivious to all this, happily selling her tofu. Business was good today. By the looks of it, the extra 20 pounds of tofu she had prepared would surely sell out before noon. As she saw the last block of tofu in her bamboo basket, weighing about 3 or 4 pounds, Chai Jingzhen, a tall, slender man in his 30s, hurried over. Do you still have tofu? Having said that, he wiped the sweat off his forehead. He was obviously in a rush. This is the last piece. Zhuang Qingning efficiently weighed the tofu, it's 3 taels over 3 pounds. It's the last piece. I'll sell it for 2 coins. You are good at business, but this over 3 pounds is definitely not enough. Chai Jingzhen furrowed his eyebrows. Finally, he released a resigned sigh. Well, let it be, even this little is enough. Tomorrow I need 20 pounds of tofu, can I pay up front and come to get it later? I'm afraid not. The tofu sold at my stall is bought directly, and unless there are special circumstances, we usually don't take pre-orders, Zhuang Qingning tactfully declined. Although pre-ordering would allow her to estimate sales and indicate her good business, Zhuang Qingning had once considered turning all her sales into pre-order sales. However, the delay of Baisan's arrival served as a wake-up call. Everything has pros and cons. Pre-orders could potentially create hype and perceived scarcity. However, implementation would be difficult. After she has taken the money, she would need to wait regardless of how the business was going, how many customers were turned away or how many harsh words were spoken. Furthermore, even though she could set up a no-late policy for pre-orders, dealing with reasonable customers would be easy. However, if she encountered unreasonable ones, they could give her a lot of trouble based on this point alone. Being a self-reliant woman who has only her sister to rely on and has no backing in town, if anything went wrong, she could easily be bullied. Therefore, Zhuang Qingning dismissed the idea, not easily agreeing to pre-ordering tofu for anyone. I see. Chai Jingzhen scratched his ear, hesitating for a moment before saying, well, since I've decided to buy tofu here, I'll have to use it by noon. So I'll just come earlier, it won't be a problem. As for the price, to be honest with you, I'm with Ri Pavilion. I heard your tofu is quite tasteful, so one thought about trying it at our kitchen. Although our restaurant is not as successful as Fushan Tower, and we're not known for our stewed tofu like Fushan Tower, we don't need a huge amount of tofu every day. However, if your tofu is good, we will use it for the long term. You should offer us a better price. At the very least, it should be cheaper than what regular customers pay. Otherwise, it would be a disgrace for him as a restaurant owner, wouldn't it? Sure thing, Zhuang Qingning replied cheerfully, as you will need a lot of tofu and you plan to buy from me for a long period, the price will naturally be lower than for normal customers. Here's the deal. Today, I will give you this block of tofu for 2 coins. That's like giving you a bit more than 1 pound for free. We won't worry too much about this change, but let's talk about your regular purchase from me starting tomorrow. The price of tofu at my stall is 1 coin per pound, 2 coins for 2.5 pounds. 20 pounds should be 16 coins. If you're purchasing it for a restaurant for a long period, we can give you a 10% discount. If you are to purchase this amount for a month, the discount will then be 12%. If you can purchase for 3 months, we can go down to 15% off. How does that sound? The margin on tofu is slim, and my price is already lower than other sellers. The price quoted is absolutely reasonable. Since you sought out my tofu stall, you must have known that my tofu tastes better than other places. The price is already very fair for the quality of tofu you are getting. The tofu here was indeed excellent in taste. Chai Jingjin had tried it by chance and knew it was better than the ordinary tofu sold elsewhere. If he could use it for his restaurant, his stewed tofu would surely stand out from that of Fushan Tower. With this in mind, Chai Jingjin was eager to buy tofu here, and he also realized that the price was indeed fair. But in business, the less you invest, the better it is. Now that Zhuang Qingning had made concessions but on certain conditions, he laughed. Young lady, I run a restaurant and naturally will need it frequently. Once one start using your tofu, I won't switch to others. 3 months, 3 years, 5 years, those all are not a problem. Forget about all these discounts like 10%, 12%. I find them troublesome. Let's just go with 15% straight away. So it would also be easier for me to keep track of the account. As for me, one will certainly do you a favor by spreading the word and bringing you more customers. Zhuang Qingning smiled at his words. If I could keep supplying tofu to your restaurant, that would be great. But since there is no signed contract or deposit, it is not certain that you will use my tofu in the long term. Also, this time you are buying tofu from me. In the future, if you find better quality tofu, naturally, you would opt for that. It's only fair, and I can't hold you accountable. But I would be giving up profits for nothing, making a loss for no reason. Chai Jingjin laughed awkwardly. Chapter 42, 042 Refund Difference. Chapter 42, Chapter 042 Refund Difference. Price bargaining or making big promises are not uncommon, they are even habitual. But when the girl in front of him stated it so clearly, it made him feel somewhat uncomfortable. Zhuang Qingning continued, but that's the way it is. If one were the buyer, I would say these things too. There's nothing wrong with that. However, given my small business, one also have concerns. If I only follow what you said, reducing the price to the bottom, it would be hard for me to do business. And naturally, you would want the lowest price. You would want the bargain down to the very bottom. Since you have your reasons, and one have my concerns, this is not an easy thing to discuss. However, one do have a compromise that we can try out. Chai Jingjin listened carefully, and although he felt Zhuang Qingning was a bit blunt, which made him a bit uncomfortable, he did recognize the logic in what she said. He knew these were complex issues and found it difficult to agree on a small business deal due to these factors. When Chai Jingjin heard Zhuang Qingning mention that there was a middle ground, he was anxious to ask, what is it? For the price of tofu, we can go as I said. Starting with a 5% discount, after 1 month it becomes a 12% discount, and after 3 months it's a 15% discount. If you want to establish a long-term business relationship immediately at the 15% discount, that's also achievable. I will take the money according to the price one mentioned at first, and after you've bought for a month, I'll refund the difference according to the 12% discount. If you can buy for 3 months, one will refund the difference for the previous 3 months according to the 15% discount. In this way, one don't have to worry about giving the lowest price but not getting much business. You also don't have to worry about not getting the lowest priced goods, we both won't lose out, and both sides could see each other's sincerity. How about it? After hearing this, Chai Jingjin looked at Zhuang Qingning for a while with his lips moving before finally saying, how old are you this year? This method is indeed a way to balance both parties' interests without causing losses to either side. It even helps to expose those who only promise but have no intention of cooperating for the long term. Chai Jingjin faced this problem quite often in the past, either failing to reach an agreement or making too many concessions himself. It was often frustrating. Now hearing a great solution, he felt not only relieved but surprised at how this young girl could come up with such a scheme. I am 12 this year, or 13 by the lunar calendar. Zhuang Qingning smiled even more brightly. are you curious as to how I came up with this idea? I am ashamed to say it, but one learned this method when one was young, when my parents were alive. I saw them handle things this way, so I used it here, just imitating them. Zhuang Qingning casually fabricated a lie to gloss over it. Knowing that this young girl did not come up with the idea herself, Cai Jingzhen felt relieved and said with a smile, "This plan is excellent, I think it's feasible. Starting tomorrow, I will come to buy tofu. If I can't come personally, I will send a clerk, you just need to remember that it's for Ri Pavilion. When it reaches a month, we'll settle the difference." "All right." Zhuang Qingning said with a nod, "Even if there are 1 or 2 days when you can't buy it, it's fine. I will count the days. As long as it accumulates to a month, it will be fine. The same goes for 3 months, and it doesn't have to be continuous. There will inevitably be rainy days or times when business at a restaurant is not good, or even when it's temporarily closed. So demanding a continuous 1 or 3 month purchasing period is unreasonable. It's a deal." Seeing Zhuang Qingning's flexible approach to business, Cai Jingzhen showed a sincere smile. After a few more exchanges, he paid the coins for the tofu and hurriedly left. Zhuang Qingning began to tidy up, preparing to return home early today. "Host, host." She heard Xiaowu's voice in her mind. "What's up?" "Host, when you accumulate 10 sales points, you can get the recipe for mapo tofu. You are now close to getting the recipe. Since a restaurant just wanted to buy tofu from you, why didn't you take the opportunity to offer a promotion like, purchase a certain amount of tofu and receive the recipe free? You could have sold more tofu in the future." Zhuang Qingning. "Xiaowu, are you a bit stupid?" Zhuang Qingning stopped short of calling him an idiot. "If they came to buy tofu from me, it shows that my tofu is the best and most delicious around. Even without providing any recipes, people will continue to buy my tofu long term. Later, as one improve my tofu making skills and unlock the advanced recipes, my tofu will be even harder to resist. So why would I fear of not being able to sell my tofu or that my tofu shop business will do poorly? If you do business normally, nobody would think anything of it, but if you're selling delicious tofu that isn't expensive, and on top of that offering free valuable recipes, people might think it's strange and worry if there's a catch. Additionally, if I accumulate these recipes to use in future when I open a restaurant, wouldn't that be a better idea? What you said makes so much sense. Indeed, the best people always find ways to associate with other like-minded ones. As a top-quality system, I am sure to meet a top-quality host. Since you recognize me as a high-quality host, shouldn't there be some reward? Since Xiaowu does not miss any opportunity to boast, she should also seize any opportunity to get a good deal from the system. Cough, cough, that's a good point. Let me see if there are any daily tasks suitable for the host." She got no further news from Xiaowu, it was clear that he had fled. This system. Zhuang Qingning didn't bother arguing with Xiaowu. She and Zhuang Qingsui cleaned up, bought some necessary items, and headed home. Although they made a lot of tofu today, it sold quickly. The 2 sisters arrived home before lunchtime. After cleaning up and soaking some beans, they prepared to make lunch early and rest. Stir-fried pork, white rice, pan-fried tofu, and chilled spinach salad with glass noodles. After being busy all morning, the sisters were starving. They gulped down their rice bowls in the courtyard. "Miss Qingning, Miss Qingsui." Mrs. He entered the courtyard, saw the sisters eating, and smiled, "I'm glad you're both home. Auntie, you've come." Zhuang Qingning put down her rice bowl. "I had some free time in the past few days and finished making your clothes. Try them on and see how they fit." Mrs. He handed over the finished garments. "I didn't get a chance to make the shoes yet. One thought one would bring the clothing over today, get a measure of your foot sizes, and find a shoe model to make them later." Chapter 43, 043, It's not that simple. Chapter 43, Chapter 043, It's not that simple. Mrs. He's words were casual, but there was a faint hint of fatigue beneath her eyes, clearly due to staying up all night. Zhuang Qingning noticed this and felt warmth in her heart. She held up the clothes against her body and said, "Auntie, your skills are impeccable. The clothes fit perfectly, both in size and shape. As long as you don't mind the thick stitches." Mrs. He, praised by Zhuang Qingning, had a face full of smiles. She then took out several small cloth bags. "These are vegetable seeds from our home. You can plant them as you see fit. These garlic bulbs can be planted now. In a few days, we would be able to eat garlic sprouts. Whatever else you need, vegetables, seeds or sprouts, just let me know. Thank you, Auntie. Zhuang Qingning and Zhuang Qingsui said in unison. Why be so formal with your auntie? Mrs. He laughed. I can't really help you guys much, these are small things I can do. The more you thank me, the more embarrassed I become. Zhuang Qingning understood Mrs. He's intentions, so she changed the subject. Once Mrs. He measured the foot sizes of Zhuang Qingning and Zhuang Qingsui and had a bit more conversation, she said it was time for her to go back for lunch. Zhuang Qingning didn't insist on her staying, and after bidding her farewell, continued to have lunch with Zhuang Qingsui. After their afternoon nap, while it was still early evening, the sisters planted some of the seeds Mrs. He had given them. Pumpkin, wax gourd, loofah, these vines prefer to climb, so it's best to plant them along the wall. For the garlic bulbs, there's no need to dig holes, just plant them in the soil, water them, and they'll grow. As for tomato and cucumber seeds, choose a plot of land carefully, scatter the seeds, wait for the sprouts to grow, then select the healthy ones to plant properly. Once they finished sowing all the different kinds of vegetable seeds, Zhuang Qingning and Zhuang Qingsui heaved a sigh of relief, wiped their sweat, and decided to rest a bit before watering them. Ding! Congratulations to the host for triggering the vegetable planting mission. The mission is divided into 6 stages: sowing, sprouting, growing, flowering, fruiting, and maturing. Each completed stage grants different amounts of vegetable-specific growth liquid, high-quality seeds, or random rewards. Now that the host has completed the first mission stage, sowing, you have obtained 2 bottles of vegetable-specific growth liquid and 2 pieces of spring wind fragments. The growth liquid can be watered or sprayed after diluting with water, and using it once in each stage is sufficient. Too much use will be ineffective. Given the number of vegetables the host has planted, 1 bottle is enough. That's fair enough. Although the rewards aren't great, they are still an unexpected gain. Zhuang Qingning, who is easily satisfied, took 1 bottle of the vegetable-specific growth liquid, mixed it with water, and then joined Zhuang Qingsui to water the newly planted vegetables. After tidying up, they made egg and pimple soup and stir-fried celery with pork, ate to their heart's content, then took a nap before the tofu-making madness began at the tofu factory. This time, Zhuang Qingning soaked an extra 2 caddies of beans. As usual, by the time they arrived at the town, Chai Jingzhen was already waiting. If you're going to be a regular buyer, I can deliver it to you every time you come to town, said Zhuang Qingning, not reluctant to exert her own labor now that the business deal was finalized and there was no more room to negotiate the price. On the contrary, I have to buy other vegetables for the restaurant in the morning, so it's convenient to buy tofu at the same time. Chai Jingzhen responded with a laugh. To buy things yourself is to choose carefully, striving to get the vegetables, meat, and eggs that match your taste. If someone else delivers them and you're not satisfied, it's troublesome to ask them to deliver again. If they don't, it's not okay either. To avoid the trouble, the less bargaining, the better. Chai Jingzhen felt more at ease with things he had chosen himself. Seeing that Chai Jingzhen was speaking in this way, Zhuang Qingning stopped insisting and quickly cut the tofu according to Chai Jingzhen's request. The over 20 caddies of tofu, sold at a 10% discount, fetched a total of 14 coins. I'll come again tomorrow. Seeing that there was a bit more tofu this time, Chai Jingzhen, smiling, instructed Zhuang Qingning to cut it into large blocks and place them in the bamboo basket next to him. After sending Chai Jingzhen away, Zhuang Qingning and Zhuang Qingsui continued to sell the tofu. Having stayed in this town for so many days now, their tofu has gained a bit of fame. Although there were times when the stall was quiet, they occasionally had to shout to attract customers, they no longer needed to give out taste tests. The tofu business was booming, and in a blink of an eye, several days passed. It seems there's more tofu today than before. Bai Sen looked at the 3 large bamboo baskets on the tofu carriage and laughed, but it makes sense, since your tofu sells so well, you should grind more. Despite this town being the largest and richest one nearby, most families lead modest lives. Compared to pork selling at 4 coins a pound, tofu selling for just over a coin per pound is both delicious and economical. When unwilling to consume meat, tofu is an excellent delicacy. Moreover, the tofu made by Zhuang Qingning indeed tastes exceptional, even better than what Mrs. Wen used to make. It's a business that is hard not to do well, even if they tried. It's thanks to everyone's support, Zhuang Qingning responded with a beaming smile. The business has indeed been good these few days. Zhuang Qingning has consistently increased the number of bean pods she soaks every day, yet the tofu always sells out before noon. However, she is not planning to increase the number of bean pods yet. What is missing is always the best. Bai San, knowing that this was her being humble, just smiled and stopped talking. He set up the tofu stand for Zhuang Qingning in the town, then, with his share of tofu, went on his way, grinning the entire time. The tofu stall began its usual bustling activity, with a steady stream of people coming and going, creating a lively atmosphere. You know, that tofu stall is really doing good business. At the corner of the street, Chang Yuanda, who had been watching the tofu stall for quite a while, furrowed his brows. Looks like there really is someone trying to compete with us, the assistant, Sun Xing, chimed in. But then he laughed. It doesn't seem like a big deal though, we had competitors before, and none of them caused any significant trouble. They're just relying on selling their tofu at a slightly cheaper price and attracting some people who like a bargain. It won't last long. Even though Sun Xing said this, Chang Yuanda's brows didn't relax. Instead, they furrowed even deeper. But this time, there's something not quite right. It doesn't feel as straightforward as before. Sun Xing raised an eyebrow in surprise. No matter how he looked at it, he couldn't see what was complicated about it. Changji Tofu Shop was an old brand. People living in the town, those coming to the fair, people from 10 surrounding villages, they all recognized this brand. When buying tofu, they always chose ours. Although there were some small mills that wanted to grab some business and share the pie, they all ended up unable to maintain their businesses in the end. Chapter 44, 044, Defend the Shortcomings. Chapter 44, Chapter 044, Defend the Shortcomings. At first glance, there didn't seem to be anything out of the ordinary about the tofu stall run by these two young girls. It just seemed like they laughed more and were more business-savvy than the average tofu vendor. There was truly nothing astonishing about it. Why did the shop manager feel there was more to it? Just as Sun Xing was wondering about this, Chang Yuanda had already stepped forward and began to walk away. Sensing this, Sun Xing hastily followed. The two made their way to Fushan Tower, but instead of entering through the front door, they entered through the back door and proceeded directly into the backyard. At that moment, the kitchen staff in the backyard were busy preparing food and cleaning dishes. Only Zhang Yongchang sat there, arms crossed and head lowered, on a small stool. Seeing this, Chang Yuanda instructed Sun Xing to deliver the tofu to the kitchen first. Then he chuckled, "Brother-in-law, who has upset you this time?" When Zhang Yongchang was upset, he would typically be silent, his face clouded and his head bowed. "You're here." Zhang Yongchang raised his head to see Chang Yuanda. His dark expression relaxed slightly, but his annoyance was still palpable. With furrowed brows and a less than kindly tone, he asked, "What brings you here?" "Well, one heard someone upset you, so one rushed right over." "Which blind fool dares to upset our esteemed chef Zhang?" Chang Yuanda joked. Zhang Yongchang frowned at Chang Yuanda's jesting demeanor, something he found quite unbecoming for a man in his 30s, and felt it was particularly irksome given his current mood. "If you have something to say, say it. If not, then leave," he snapped. Being familiar with Zhang Yongchang's temperament, Chang Yuanda dropped his joking manner and said with furrowed brows, "Actually, there is indeed a matter I'd like to discuss with you." However, Chang Yuanda paused and continued, "Considering the state you're in, brother-in-law, why don't you go first? Perhaps one can help in some way." Seeing Chang Yuanda being serious for once was somewhat refreshing. Feeling relief as he spoke, Zhang Yongchang admitted, "Lately, I've heard some murmuring that the caramelized tofu at Rui Pavilion supposedly tastes better than my own. Once or twice, one dismissed it as the Chai family's attempts to discredit me. But after hearing it several more times, and even noticing Qin Hongbao has been coming in less frequently, and when he doesn't order the caramelized tofu, one became puzzled. That mediocre cook at Rui Pavilion, could his caramelized tofu really taste better than mine? The very proposition is absurd. Absolutely absurd." Chang Yuanda chimed in from the side. This man, who had traveled to countless townships and tasted dishes in various restaurants, knew that Zhang Yongchang was indeed an excellent cook, especially when it came to caramelized tofu. Even if his skills couldn't surpass the chefs in the city's finest restaurants, they were definitely on par with the cooks in the county. Throughout the entire town, Chang Yuanda would be the first to dispute anyone claiming to make better caramelized tofu than Zhang Yongchang. Zhang Yongchang shot him a glare, so, due to this, I got into a heated argument with someone. One even went to Rui Pavilion to taste their caramelized tofu, just to see how their rendition could possibly taste better than mine. At this, Chang Yuanda suddenly broke out into a cold sweat. A premier chef from Fushan Tower having a row with a patron and then going to Rui Pavilion to order food. This complete disregard for face was simply beyond belief, something only the obstinate Zhang Yongchang would do. And when one got to Rui Pavilion, they served me their caramelized tofu, so tried it, and guess what? Zhang Yongchang went on, slapping his thigh in frustration, that good-for-nothing cook, whoever he learned from, his caramelized tofu is actually much better than before. And, to my surprise, it's roughly on par with mine. Or perhaps, even marginally better. Is that really true? Chang Yuanda looked taken aback. Isn't it? As Zhang Yongchang continued, his frustration spiked, that cook at Rui Pavilion barely can cook. He has no culinary talent to speak of, and even with a good mentor, I doubt he could learn much. But his caramelized tofu. It had turned out to be extraordinarily delicious. He had tasted it carefully. The sauce was just as it was before and didn't taste any better, but the tofu. Zhang Yongchang shot upright and exclaimed, could it be that you've been selling the better tofu to Rui Pavilion, while Fushan Tower gets the bad stuff because I'm here? Absolutely not. Chang Yuanda hastily waved his hands in denial. I've always given instructions for only the best tofu to be sent to you. I know about your temper and wouldn't dare to slight you. As for Rui Pavilion, they stopped purchasing tofu from us some time ago. I was just wondering whether I should ask them why, but haven't done so yet. One thing is certain, we did not provide them with superior tofu while giving inferior tofu to you. Although Chang Yuanda was often joking around, his professionalism was reliable, and his words were trustworthy. Then what? It's really strange. If Rui Pavilion didn't buy from you, where else could they get good tofu? If even using their low-quality tofu, Rui Pavilion could still serve caramelized tofu that tasted better than his, didn't that mean his culinary skills were regressing? Zhang Yongchang felt increasingly agitated, as if he wanted to tear out several strands of hair. By the way, you were saying you had something to discuss with me. What is it? Zhang Yongchang looked up and inquired. These past few days, tofu sales at the shop have been down. Chang Yuanda spoke with furrowed brows. I've noticed a lot of regular customers aren't coming to the shop to buy tofu anymore. I've been wondering why. It seems two young girls selling tofu on the street might be to blame. Li Fang told me their tofu is cheaper, which is why they've taken over our business. I came here intending to discuss this matter with you, and consider how we can win back our business. Street vendors selling tofu. And they've taken over Changji's business. Rui Pavilion hasn't been buying from Changji for a while, and recently, the flavor of their caramelized tofu has remarkably improved. Zhang Yongchang suddenly stood up. Where are they? I need to go see for myself. And with that, he stormed off, full of fiery determination. He really was protective of his family. Just hearing that someone had encroached on Changji's business, he was ready to confront them head-on. The sight was indeed inspiring. Surely, coming to Fushan Tower today was the right decision. Chapter 45, 045 all taken. Chapter 45, Chapter 045 all taken. Chang Yuanda's heart suddenly warmed up, catching up in a hurry, just on the street, not far diagonally across from Fushan Tower, two young girls, you can see them at a glance. However, brother-in-law, I understand your intentions and worries about the family business, but you shouldn't be too impulsive. As Chang Yuanda chased after behind, he persuaded, the fact that the business of Changji Tofu Shop was taken away is not something honorable. If you go and question them in such way, it will make our tofu shop look bad, intolerant of others, and it will eventually affect our tofu shop. We should consider other ways. It's best to think thrice before acting. As Chang Yuanda was babbling here, he looked up and saw Zhang Yongchang had already left the courtyard, heading straight for the tofu stall. This Zhang the Stirrer. Everything is good about him, but he has a wheat straw temperament, stubborn, determined to do what he has set his mind on, never listen to others, not even if 10 bulls are pulling him back. Now that he's going so bluntly to find trouble with the tofu stall, won't others gossip and seek to break the backbone of Changji Tofu Shop? Chang Yuanda thought about it on the spot for a while, and decided it would be better to stand aside and watch for a while. If Zhang Yongchang really starts messing with people, he can go and mediate later, which would also show that he is sensible, and give the tofu shop a good reputation. If Zhang Yongchang persuaded the tofu seller directly to retreat, that would be the best. He could just sit and wait for the tofu shop to benefit. Anyway, he wouldn't jump into this muddy water, just waiting for the following developments would be best. While Chang Yuanda was waiting here, Zhang Yongchang had already arrived at the tofu stall run by Zhuang Qingning. How much tofu do you want? Zhuang Qingning was busy, so Zhuang Qingsui came to greet this man who had panted up to their stall to buy tofu. When she looked up and saw the gloomy face of Zhang Yongchang, she jumped and dropped the tofu knife in her hand into the basket, hiding behind Zhuang Qingning. Seeing this, Zhuang Qingning patted Zhuang Qingsui's back of hand, signaling her not to be afraid. Then she looked at Zhang Yongchang and asked, "Do you want tofu? What else could I buy here? Eggs?" Zhang Yongchang was somewhat dissatisfied with Zhuang Qingning's words. "Even though you're not that old, your speech is so annoying, just hurry up, cut 2 pounds of tofu, let me taste it." Zhuang Qingning's eyebrows involuntarily raised a bit. For this person who was clearly hostile, Zhuang Qingning still decided to be prudent, and just picked up the plate with the tofu cubes neatly arranged. "It seems this is your first time buying tofu from us. You can taste it first. If you like the taste, you can buy it. If you don't like the taste, you don't have to buy." Clarifying this in advance will help the other party decide whether to buy or not, to avoid any complaints afterwards. Zhang Yongchang didn't say anything, just frowned, picked up a piece of tofu and chewed it. The more he chewed, the deeper his brow furrowed, and his expression became more serious. Yes, it was this taste. The braised tofu he had tasted at Rui Pavilion, it was this taste, fragrant, rich, and with enough deliciousness that made people want more after eating it. "This tofu of yours," Zhang Yongchang sat up straight, his eyes full of joy as he scanned the tofu in the basket. "How much is left?" "I'll take it all." It looked like he really came to buy tofu. Zhuang Qingning breathed a sigh of relief and said, "There should be about 30 pounds of tofu left. 1 foot 11 inches weigh it for you." "There's no need, let's count it as 35 pounds. Zhang Yongchang took out his money bag. "It's 1 coin per pound, right?" Zhang Yongchang counted the money while he spoke and handed it over. "Here, 35 coins. Zhuang Qingning didn't reach out to take it. Sell my tofu at 1 coin per pound, 2 coins for 2.5 pounds, 30-something pounds of tofu, that's 24 coins. You gave too much. That's fair of you." Zhang Yongchang tugged at the corner of his mouth. "No wonder you are able to snatch the business from Changji Tofu Shop. All right, 35 coins, just keep it. 1 foot 11 inches. Take your bamboo basket, and you can go back and prepare a new one." Having said that, he stuffed the money into Zhuang Qingning's hand, picked up the bamboo basket and turned to leave. A bamboo basket is probably worth about 7 to 8 coins, and the tofu is also over 30 pounds, so it seems a fair trade. Therefore, Zhuang Qingning didn't insist further, and just collected the money. By the way, Zhang Yongchang, who had walked a few steps, turned back to add, "One need 30 pounds, no, 40 pounds of tofu every day." "Okay," Zhuang Qingning nodded, "but one don't take reservations for my tofu usually, it's sold directly. If you come late, it might be sold out. So, it's best to come and buy early. Or if you prefer, I can deliver it to you." 40 pounds of tofu a day would make him currently the biggest customer of Zhuang Qingning's, and he is indeed a big spender. Zhuang Qingning felt that she could offer delivery service for such a customer. "Delivery works too, it's not far." Zhang Yongchang pointed towards Fushan Tower. "When you arrive in the morning, just deliver the tofu there, just say that Chef Zhang ordered it, someone will pay you." Zhuang Qingning was both surprised and delighted to find that the customer was the head chef of Fushan Tower. "All right, 1 foot 11 inches. Deliver it first thing tomorrow," Zhang Qingning promised cheerfully. "You can count on me." "Yes, don't forget." Zhang Yongchang finished his instructions, lifted his bamboo basket, and left contentedly. Zhuang Qingning watched Zhang Yongchang leave, and carefully put the money into the money bag. The corners of her mouth couldn't help but turn up. Before, she was deceived when she went door to door selling tofu, but now the chef comes personally to buy tofu. The contrast between then and now proves that her approach of relying on word-of-mouth marketing and waiting for big customers to come to her was correct. Sister. Zhuang Qingning also smiled and said, "Even Fushan Tower buys tofu from us now. That shows how tasty our tofu is." "Of course." Zhuang Qingning raised her chin, messed up Zhuang Qingsui's hair and joked, "Our craftsmanship is indeed impeccable." "Exactly, the taste of your tofu is indeed very good. I'm sure you'll be able to sell it better than Changji Tofu Shop in the future." Mrs. Lu also started laughing. "One reckon, you may be able to sell this tofu all the way to the county town. You may not even be able to meet the demand with the tofu you grind every day." "Hope so, let's hope your words come true." Zhuang Qingning's eyes were smiling brightly. Because Zhang the Stirrer had bought out all the tofu finished even earlier than expected. Zhuang Qingning didn't want to stick around, so she just took Zhuang Qingsui for a walk around and bought some stuff on the street, found a bullock cart afterwards, and returned home early. Make lunch, take a nap, and get ready for a new round of work in the evening. On the other hand, Zhang Yongchang with the bamboo basket, returned to the backyard of the Fushan Tower. Chang Yuanda, who had been waiting, rushed up to meet him, his eyes wide and his face full of difficulty. "Brother-in-law, did you cause trouble at their stall?" Chapter 46, 046 What's going on? Chapter 46, Chapter 046 What's going on? "Oh dear, my dear brother-in-law, one know you are fond of me and want to stand up for me, but this ruckus seems a bit too much. What a mess." Zhang Yongchang furrowed his eyebrows and glanced at Chang Yuanda. "All right, enough babbling. You should get back to your own business." Ignoring his dumbfounded gaze, Zhang Yongchang grabbed the bamboo basket and the tofu and walked towards the kitchen. Then he stopped after a few steps and said, "Oh yes, from now on, you don't need to deliver tofu to Fushan Tower anymore." Chang Yuanda's jaw nearly hit the floor. Hadn't Zhang Yongchang just defended him because the business of his tofu shop was affected, even flipping a tofu stall over? Now he said that he doesn't need his tofu anymore. What was going on? Chang Yuanda was completely baffled and couldn't figure out why. Sun Xing at the side was equally astonished, his eyes widened. Hurry up, hurry up." Zhang Yongchang entered the kitchen and set the bamboo basket aside. "Quickly, find someone to call Qin Hongbao for me." The apprentice cutting vegetables hurriedly wiped his hands and was about to go out to carry out the order, but then hesitated and stopped. "Master, when one go to find manager Qin, what should one tell him?" After all, he was the shop manager, and he was just a small apprentice. Although he respected his master very much, on the outside, his master was just a cook in the kitchen. There should be a reason to call him over. Just say, "I want him to come over and taste our braised tofu." Zhang Yongchang didn't lift his head and focused on taking a large piece of tofu out of the bamboo basket, placing it on the chopping board, and cutting it into proper sizes. "All right then." The apprentice left the kitchen at once. Although he was puzzled on the way. Braised tofu has been a signature dish of Fushan Tower for many years, and Qin Hongbao has eaten there for years. He is already very familiar with this dish. Why did they suddenly ask him to taste it again? Anyway, since his master had ordered it, he had to do it as an apprentice. It's not his place to worry about other matters. The apprentice didn't think too much and just went to find Qin Hongbao. Qin Hongbao was busy in his shop. When he heard what the apprentice said, he frowned. "Chef Zhang wants me to taste the food." To taste the braised tofu? "Yes, that's what master said." The apprentice answered truthfully. But this dish? What could be worth tasting? However, since Chef Zhang had specifically asked an apprentice to find him, could it be? Qin Hongbao's eyes lit up immediately. He put down the account book in his hand, told the apprentice to look after the shop, and hurriedly followed the apprentice to Fushan Tower. "You've come right on time. Want to have a taste?" Over here, Zhang Yongchang had already prepared a dish of braised tofu. When Qin Hongbao arrived, he handed him the chopsticks. "You have a try. Does it taste the same as what you ate the other day?" "Okay, let me try." Qin Hongbao had been in a hurry to come over because he was wondering if Zhang Yongchang had managed to recreate the wonderful braised tofu dish he had tasted the other day. He quickly took the chopsticks and tasted it. The familiar and wonderful taste gradually spread in his mouth. After swallowing a piece of tofu, Qin Hongbao immediately picked up another piece. Is it the same taste? Seeing his reaction, Zhang Yongchang had a general idea. Yes, exactly. This is the taste. The taste I had that day. Good job, Chef Zhang. Your cooking is impeccable, and the taste is very delicious. As Qin Hongbao ate and praised Zhang Yongchang, he also called to an apprentice, since I was too busy to eat this morning, get me some hot pancakes, and I'll eat them. Sure, 1 foot 11 inches make you some scallion pancakes. Zhang Yongchang was in a good mood and decided to make the pancake for Qin Hongbao himself. Zhang Yongchang was a chef who usually only made main dishes. Normally, snacks like scallion pancakes and pot stickers were made by the minor apprentices, so he didn't usually make them himself. Qin Hongbao felt like he has got a huge bargain and his mouth was almost grinning to his ears. The sun was going down, and it was evening. Because of the extra steamed rice at noon, Zhuang Qingning made a delicious fried rice with leftover rice, eggs, and garlic sprouts in the evening, accompanied by pickles bought from the town, and made a vegetable soup. After eating, Zhuang Qingning cleaned up the dishes, while Zhuang Qingsui grabbed the water scoop to water the vegetables. While watering, she stopped. Sister, how many days have we been planting these vegetables? Zhuang Qingning was about to answer when she saw the lush green fields in the courtyard and realized she had made a mistake. She had poured the growth liquid on the seeds and newly sprouted vegetables twice as the system suggested, hoping the vegetables would grow quickly and vigorously. Now they were growing vigorously, with several leaves already, looking like they had been planted for half a month. How could she explain this unusual phenomenon to Zhuang Qingsui? Zhuang Qingning shook off the water droplets from her hand. Oh, these seedlings are growing so well. It seems Auntie gave us good seeds. Look, they are all so green. Yes indeed. Zhuang Qingsui tilted her head. Sister, don't you think these seedlings are growing a bit too fast? Fast? It's okay. Zhuang Qingning laughed. The seeds have been planted for several days now. Growing fast means the seeds are good, and the land is fertile. Even if the land is fertile, it's different, but look at the hard-working Zhuang family, whose vegetable plots are well cultivated. The crops in the fields are also thriving. One suspect that this used to be Butcher Hua's house. They slaughtered pigs and sheep all the time. The pig and sheep dung, pig and sheep blood, are all soaked into the plot. The soil is naturally nourishing for the crops, which is why the vegetables grow so well. Zhuang Qingning turned her face away. Lying to a child does feel a bit guilty. That makes sense. Zhuang Qingsui nodded approvingly and then laughed. It's good that the vegetables are growing well. Once they grow quickly, we can eat fresh vegetables sooner and save some money for buying vegetables. That's true. Zhuang Qingning sighed in relief. Miss Ning, Miss Sui. A 4RS. He entered the courtyard. Seeing someone interrupted their conversation, Zhuang Qingning felt relieved. She quickly went to greet her. Auntie is here. Come, have a seat. No need to sit, I've finished making the shoes. One brought them over for you too. Mrs. He handed over the shoes wrapped in cloth, and here's the leftover piece of cloth. You keep it for now, you can use it later. Thank you, Auntie. Zhuang Qingning accepted with a smile. She went into the kitchen to get a piece of tofu and handed it to Mrs. He. This is homemade tofu. Take it back to make a dish. Since she didn't charge for the labor for making the clothes, it seems right to give a piece of tofu back. Chapter 47, 047, Best of Both Worlds. Chapter 47, Chapter 047, Best of Both Worlds. You two keep it for yourselves. Mrs. He declined. Auntie, please accept it. Zhuang Qingning still pushed it into Mrs. He's hands. You have been helping us make clothes and shoes, without asking for money or tofu in return. How would one have the nerve to ask you to make clothes for us in the future if you don't accept this? Seeing Zhuang Qingning insist, Mrs. He, knowing they were now making tofu as a business, felt they were doing all right, so she reluctantly accepted it. Then, Auntie will accept this without any shame. After accepting the tofu, Mrs. He didn't leave immediately, but was grinning and casually looking around, seeming quite embarrassed. Auntie, do you also need something from me? Zhuang Qingning sensed something and asked. Well, there is a little something. Mrs. He appeared hesitant but finally seemed to make up her mind, biting her lip and saying, I wanted to discuss something with you. Auntie, feel free to say whatever you need. Zhuang Qingning fetched a newly purchased small stool and invited Mrs. He to sit down. Auntie, please take a seat and tell me at your ease. Once she sat down, Mrs. He seemed somewhat less nervous. Clearing her throat, she said, now that you've rented sister-in-law Wen's tofu workshop, one have tasted your tofu and it is very good. You are also doing well at the town market. 1 am very happy for both of you. However, since sister-in-law Wen's workshop stopped grinding tofu, our village no longer has anyone making tofu. To buy tofu, we must either go to the town or Linsuan village, which is very inconvenient. You and Miss Sui can only manage to sell tofu in the town market, but you cannot manage to serve our village. I was thinking of proposing something. Why not keep some tofu at home before you go to the town market to sell, and your uncle and one can help sell it in our village. We don't have much to do during the off-farming season, and our child is growing up gradually. 1 am also thinking about earning some extra money to support the family. Seeing that your tofu business is good, I thought about buying tofu from you to sell in the village in hopes of earning some money. Secondly, whether you grind a little tofu or a lot, you're still grinding. Why not grind a little more? One can sell it in the village on weekdays. If we don't manage to sell all of it in the village, your uncle can carry a basket and sell it house to house. This way, we can help you sell more, and you can earn a bit more. However, after all this is said, we also want to make money for our own family. If you think it's a good idea, let's give it a try. If it's not suitable, that's okay, just let that idea pass. As she was proposing to use someone else's business to make money for her own family, Mrs. He felt very embarrassed, and her eyes showed embarrassment as she spoke. Before Mrs. He had arrived, she was just thinking about how to expand the sales of tofu. But now with Mrs. He's suggestion, she had an idea. Why wouldn't she want to take upon an idea that not only expands her sales channel, but also offers some rewards to those who are kind to her? Auntie. Zhuang Qingning even smiled, I won't hide it from you, our tofu business is indeed doing quite well in the town market. Given the current trend, I have been thinking whether I should increase production, and also consider selling tofu in our village. However, with just me and Qingsui at home, we can only manage one place. At present, we can barely manage the business in the town market, and we really can't afford to sell tofu in the village. Originally, I've been thinking about finding a reliable and diligent person to help me with the tofu sales, and coincidentally, you've come. Dependable and diligent, aren't these perfectly describing uncle and you? Zhuang Qingning continued, Auntie, it's such a coincidence that you brought up this subject today. We are indeed on the same page. How about starting from tomorrow, your family can help me sell the tofu? All right, all right. Seeing that Zhuang Qingning also had the same idea and agreed readily, Mrs. He nodded her head hastily, we will start tomorrow. Rest assured, Uncle and I will definitely do a good job selling the tofu. I trust you and Uncle. Zhuang Qingning smiled, discussing the specific details of selling tofu on behalf of her with Mrs. He. Details like, the price should be the same as what she sells in town and not too cheap, the daily amount should not be too much, selling based on scarcity would be best, and some tricks in selling tofu, etc. When they finished discussing, Mrs. He saw that it was getting late and let the Zhuang sisters rest. She headed home under the night sky. Zhuang Qingning and Zhuang Qingsui had been tending to their vegetable garden for a while, and after such a long conversation, they were tired and went back to bed to sleep a bit more. Meanwhile, Mrs. He quickly entered her house. Why are you back so late? Zhuang Yonghe was weaving straw shoes in the courtyard under the moonlight. When he saw Mrs. He return, he asked, moving his children to set up the table and scoop out porridge for dinner. I thought you would have already finished dinner. Mrs. He said with a smile, Qingning gave us a piece of tofu. It would be troublesome to stir-fry it now. Why don't we just pick a few green onions to make a cold tofu dish? All right. Zhuang Yonghe nodded, calling their oldest son into the kitchen to help Mrs. He prepare the meal. Zhuang Yonghe and Mrs. He have 4 children in total, all boys and no girls. Normally, tasks like helping out in the kitchen would be done by a daughter, but in their case, the sons had to take up the responsibilities typically assigned to daughters. Fortunately, Their oldest son Zhuang Mingliang is such a kind and honest boy who doesn't mind doing these things. He is dutiful and respectful towards his parents and always takes the initiative to finish tasks. They brought a dish of jade-like tender green onions mixed with tofu to the table, in addition to some pickled vegetables from their home, fresh spinach with glass noodles from their flourishing vegetable garden, porridge of cornmeal, and steamed cornbread of cornmeal and sweet potato flour, making the meal quite plentiful. How did the negotiation with girl Ning go? Zhuang Yonghe asked after taking a bite out of his cornbread. You might not believe this. Mrs. He laughed and shared. As soon as I mentioned this idea to Qing Ning, she said she was also considering finding a trustworthy person to help sell her tofu in the village. It was a coincidence that we asked her, and it was immediately decided that as of tomorrow, we would be selling the tofu that Qing Ning makes in the village. That's wonderful. Zhuang Yonghe grinned. I was worried that Qing Ning might refuse, and that we'd then be seen as pushy. Yes, I felt the same way, said Mrs. He. However, Qing Ning said that we need to control the quantity properly. We should not start with too much in the beginning. From tomorrow, let's start with 40 pounds and see how it goes. As for the initial investment, we don't need to provide that. We only need to settle accounts with Qing Ning every day after selling the tofu. The tofu is priced at 1 coin per pound, 5 coins for 2.5 pounds. The income from the sale, we will keep 20% and give 80% to Qing Ning. 40 pounds of tofu can fetch more than 30 coins. 2% of this would be 6 or 7 coins. Zhuang Yonghe, who usually weaves straw shoes and makes bamboo baskets at home during off-farming seasons, only earns around 4 or 5 coins a day. Selling tofu earns more than weaving straw shoes. Moreover, this is just the beginning. Later, if working harder, strolling around the streets and visiting more villages to sell more tofu is feasible. Chapter 48, 048, Some Truths. Chapter 48, Chapter 048, Some Truths. Moreover, as the children gradually grow up, the eldest is already 12 this year and will soon be strong enough to help with the work. If the two of them could sell tofu separately, they might be able to sell even more. If they could earn a little more silver, their future lives would also be a bit better. Zhuang Yonghe couldn't help but let his smile grow a little bigger at the thought. Mrs. He was aware of what he was thinking, and her smile on her face didn't decrease. If we really can earn more silver in the future, it will indeed be thanks to Javeless Ning. Isn't it? Zhuang Yonghe nodded in complete agreement. Tomorrow, when we go to get tofu, let's bring something from our house over. You pick a few good ones to give to Miss Ning and Miss Sui. If one profits from others' efforts without any capital investment, one must understand gratitude. The due courtesies must not be neglected. Don't worry, I've thought it all through. Mrs. He said with a smile, tomorrow we'll take a few pounds of flour and 10 pounds of cornmeal with us, and the eggs laid by our old hens at home, maybe a dozen or so, along with some green onions and spinach, all useful stuff, so they won't have to spend money buying them. I was originally thinking of bringing more as well, but seeing Miss Ning's manner, I feared she might not accept too much, so let's just give a little less for now. After all, we have a long future ahead. We can help them as much as we can, bit by bit. For example, helping the two children make clothes, tidying up their home, and things like quilts and mattresses. She always had these matters on her mind and would absolutely not let Zhuang Qingning suffer any losses. That's right. Mrs. He had been married to him for many years and had always managed family affairs and social interactions very properly. Nobody could find any fault with her. If she had a plan in mind, there was no need for him to worry. Just as Mrs. He said, they have a long way to go in the future. There will be plenty of time for them to interact with each other. Showing gratitude is not something that can be achieved in a moment. Also, you boys must remember to protect Big Sister Ning whenever you are in the village. Zhuang Yonghe instructed the small boys who were eating heartily at the dining table. After all, Zhuang Qingning and Zhuang Qingsui, having established a female household, might not conform to conventional norms and many people might look down on them. The adults, out of saving face, wouldn't bring it up explicitly. However, the older children, being the most rambunctious and not thinking before they speak, might utter some unpleasant words. At such times, if you choose to argue with them, you seem overly serious, and if you ignore them, it's uncomfortable. This is really difficult to handle. It would be better to let Zhuang Mingliang and the other children stand up to them. It would seem like children playing around, and others couldn't find fault with it. Moreover, Zhuang Qingning and Zhuang Qingsui wouldn't be bullied by the other children. Dad, you really overthink this. The second son, Zhuang Mingho, took a big mouthful of the cornmeal porridge in his bowl, then smacked his lips and said, "You have no idea, Big Sister Ning has scored quite a reputation among us children. Everyone says that Big Sister Ning is a tough character who doesn't hesitate to use a knife. Who dares to mess with her?" His words were not false. Zhuang Qingning had said some harsh words to Zhuang Jingye when she was establishing her female household. After hearing these words, Zhuang Jingye became more and more fearful and couldn't help but spread them around. The goal was to prevent people in the village from despising and bullying her just because she is a woman with a self-established household, which might infuriate her and result in her resorting to extreme measures such as using a knife or poison that are irreversible. However, as these words passed from mouth to mouth, the narrative began to change. Some people said Zhuang Qingning threatened Zhuang Jingye with a knife to her throat, which was why he consented to her establishing a female household. Others said Zhuang Qingning drew blood with her knife at Zhuang Rumen's house. They wondered how else could Zhuang Rumen and Mrs. Song have agreed to let Zhuang Qingning, a valuable laborer, establish her own female household. And to stay quiet for so long without causing trouble. They were scared. Adding to this, not long after Zhuang Qingning set up her female household, she rented Mrs. Wen's tofu factory, and the two have been close ever since. Others thus confirmed that they are of the same character type, hence their affinity for each other. In short, Zhuang Qingning is someone to be avoided. What kind of nonsense are you talking about? Hearing what Zhuang Mingho said, Mrs. He's brows knitted together. I watched Miss Ning grow up, don't I know her temperament? This time, she established a female household purely and simply because Mrs. Song forced her into a corner. There was nothing else she could do. What tough-talking knife brandisher, what kind of language is that? They virtually slandered Miss Ning. As Miss Ning gets older, she's going to have to get married. How is she supposed to find a husband if such things are said about her? Mrs. He got angrier the more she spoke. If you hear any more nonsense, go and talk to them. In my opinion, this is not a bad thing. Zhuang Yonghe said in a low voice. How is it? Mrs. He was confused. This is clearly ruining her reputation. A good reputation has its advantages and disadvantages, but having a tough reputation also has its good and bad aspects. Miss Ning and Miss Sui established a female household without any adults to depend on. It is inevitable that some people may look down on them. Now, though, everyone says that Miss Ning is of a harsh temperament, so others wouldn't dare treat her carelessly or bully her randomly. Isn't this a good thing for her? Zhuang Yonghe explained further, look at Mrs. Wen, although she has a bad temper and a bad reputation, who dared to bully her and her mother in all these years. In my opinion, this is pretty good. It can prevent some people who are not polite and just want to bully people from thinking she is easy to exploit. When you put it that way, it seems to make sense. Mrs. He nodded in agreement. In general, for Zhuang Qingning right now, it is most important that she earns money in peace. As for finding a family to marry into in the future, it is a matter of several years in the future. Since she established a female household, she can marry in by taking a husband as well, so this is not something to worry about too much. Thinking of this, Mrs. He felt somewhat reassured, holding her bowl and continuing to eat her cornmeal porridge, while discussing with Zhuang Yonghe how to sell tofu. Fushan Tower, at this moment, the lantern hanging outside the entrance was glowing red, and the business was as prosperous as that lantern. It was bustling in the kitchen. At this hour, there were still people adding dishes to their orders, and most of those were stir-fried tofu in soy sauce. After Ma Tong finished taking the orders, Zhang Yongchang forcefully knocked the large iron spoon against the edge of the pot a few times. Tell them out there, we're out of tofu for today. If they want to eat stir-fried tofu, they'll have to come back tomorrow. At this time, most of the people still eating were those who invited their relatives or friends to drink. They would have been drinking for quite some time by now. Telling them that the dish they wanted to order was out would obviously provoke trouble. Chapter 49, 049, Headache. Chapter 49, Chapter 049, Headache. That drunken customer, wouldn't he get angry, slam the table, throw the chopsticks, and smash the cups? Since this has happened before, Ma Tong didn't dare to neglect. He rubbed his hands together and looked pleadingly at Zhang Yongchang after checking the kitchen. Uncle Zhang, don't we still have tofu? Can you eat that tofu? For humans to eat. Zhang Yongchang gave the waiter a stern look. Sending out tofu will probably ruin my reputation. Just tell the people outside that the brown sauce tofu is not available today. If they come early tomorrow, it will be. Zhang Yongchang said and went on to cook other dishes without giving any heed to the waiter. The fire on the stove was blazing, and Zhang Yongchang flipped the spoon forcefully. The flames that erupted seemingly consumed the entire pot, lighting up the entire kitchen with a fiery glow. Seeing that Zhang Yongchang wasn't willing to cook any more dishes and fearing potential hassles with the customers, Ma Tong had no choice but to inform Feng Yongkang of the situation. Really? Feng Yongkang furrowed his brow. I too find it extremely strange. Ma Tong's brow was furrowed even more than Feng Yongkang's, saying, I don't know why Uncle Zhang suddenly dislikes Changji's tofu. Didn't he always say that Changji's tofu was the best, and no tofu could match it? How come that within a few days, he says that Changji's tofu is inedible? Moreover, Changji's tofu is delicious. Okay, I got it. Feng Yongkang dismissively raised his hand. Well, shop manager, how should I reply to the customers? Just tell them that we didn't prepare enough tofu today, serve them a dish of peanuts as compensation. Feng Yongkang ordered. So, no dishes will be served after all. Upon hearing this, Ma Tong felt instantly dispirited. Even if they encounter customers with good tempers who don't flip tables or smash plates, they will definitely complain about the absence of this signature dish, and he'll have to plaster on a grin to service them well. But who made him a waiter? Waiters have to do this dirty work. Ma Tong sighed to himself, headed to the front hall, thinking about what to say to the customers. Feng Yongkang went to the kitchen. At this point, the kitchen wasn't too busy. Zhang Yongchang was finishing up the additional orders, and the assistants were tidying up under his orders. Zhang Yongchang was a stern and perfectionist man. His kitchen was always expected to be immaculate with no room for chaos. Right now, the assistants were working diligently, while Zhang Yongchang was heating the knives over the fire to remove the water vapor from the blades, preventing them from rusting. Brother Yongchang, Feng Yongkang approached him, take a break and have some tea with me. I just got some excellent Maojian tea today, why don't you have a taste? Zhang Yongchang was a tea drinker. Despite being unable to discern the minute differences in flavors, he loved the delicate aroma of tea. Hearing Feng Yongkang's invitation, he put down his work, told the assistants to finish tidying up, and then went into the courtyard with Feng Yongkang. Lighting a lantern, brewing a pot of tea, and preparing 2 bowls of peanuts and sunflower seeds, they chatted while enjoying the tea. Just now when I came back, Brother Yuanda came to me and said that you stopped using Changji's tofu. What happened? Feng Yongkang continued, we have been using Changji's tofu and it's very good, isn't it? Why did you suddenly stop using it? Did Brother Yuanda offend you? What business is it of mine if he behaves himself or not? Moreover, even if he did offend me, as long as his tofu is delicious, I would still use it. Zhang Yongchang retorted, in fact, one can no longer use Changji's tofu. I found a new type of tofu which is even more delicious. Do you remember Qin Hongbao saying that he tasted a different kind of brown sauce tofu at our restaurant? I think it was made with that tofu. I've been out inquiring and found that the business at Rui Pavilion has been better than before lately, and their brown sauce tofu is selling well because they have been using this new tofu. So today, I bought some and also arranged for future deliveries. The delivery girl will bring the tofu tomorrow morning, at which point you can arrange for the bill to be settled. Really, there is tofu better than Changji's tofu? Feng Yongkang was doubtful, his eyebrows knitted together. Gosh, would I lie to you? I personally tasted it. Can one be wrong? I'll tell you, after I bought the tofu, one had Qin Hongbao taste it. He personally said it was the same as what he had eaten before. Today's brown sauce tofu sold really well. Some tables even ordered 2 plates. Believe me, using this tofu, I promise the business at Fushun Tower will be much better. Zhang Yongchang started laughing as he spoke. Seeing his firm belief and confidence, Feng Yongkang began to believe his words. After all, Zhang Yongchang is extremely demanding when it comes to the taste of dishes. He is also very stubborn. As long as a product can produce good dishes, he insists on buying it no matter where it comes from. If he commends this tofu, then it must be good. If the shop manager doesn't believe me, you can try it tomorrow. I originally planned for you to taste it when you came back tonight, but I forgot to save any in the heat of the moment. Zhang Yongchang said, but you can rest assured, this tofu isn't expensive, the price is similar to Changji's. In the future, if we need more you can see if we can get a cheaper price. But honestly, for such delicious tofu, we shouldn't start haggling. Even if the price of this tofu is a little higher than that of Changji's, it won't matter. If brother says it's delicious, then it must be good. As long as brother thinks this tofu is good, just let them deliver on time, we can talk about the money later. Feng Yongkang laughed, though his brows remained furrowed. He sighed, I guess brother Yuanda is going to keep nagging at my ear. Perhaps it's not nagging, rather, whining. When Chang Yuanda came to see him, his face was already wrinkled like a bun, pouring out his sorrows about how Changji was doing poorly and even his brother-in-law didn't care and stopped using Changji's tofu. If this continues, Changji Tofu House would have to close. A grown man speaking like that was truly unbearable. If he couldn't persuade Zhang Yongchang, Chang Yuanda would probably cry in front of him. Thinking about this, Feng Yongkang was exasperated. Chapter 50, 050, Turning Black into White. Chapter 50, Chapter 050, Turning Black into White. Why do you care about him? Zhang Yongchang sneered, with his effete ways, he can't do anything right anyway. He can't even make his own good-tasting tofu, so what gives him the right to nag at you? If he nags you again, just ignore him. If he seeks further trouble, let him come to me. The person Chang Yuanda feared the most was Zhang Yongchang. Feng Yongkang was aware of this. With Zhang Yongchang backing him, he wasn't afraid of Chang Yuanda causing trouble anymore. As long as the message was relayed, seeing that Zhang Yongchang appeared very determined, there was nothing he could do. If Chang Yuanda complained afterward, he couldn't be blamed. After all, no one in Fushan Tower dared to offend Zhang Yongchang, right? As for the tofu matter, whoever used it, let it be. If it tasted good, it could only enhance the business of the restaurant. Why not, then? Feng Yongkang felt that the whole affair didn't pose any adverse effect on him. Drinking his tea for a while, he allowed Zhang Yongchang to take his leave early to go home. Manager, Zhang Yongchang called out to him, don't you find something strikingly odd? What is it? Feng Yongkang paused. Qin Hongbao mentioned that the dish he tried today tasted exactly the same as the one he had a few days ago. If that's the case, then it is highly probable that on the day I made the braised tofu, a few plates were made with the tofu sold by those two girls. Zhang Yongchang stated, in that case, it would be quite peculiar. We've always used Changji tofu in our kitchen and there were never any outsiders allowed in. So, where did this tofu come from and how did it end up in our kitchen? Upon hearing this, Feng Yongkang pondered, indeed, we should consider investigating this matter thoroughly. Li Fang, who was helping move dishes and utensils to the backyard, heard this conversation, his heart skipped a beat, and he almost dropped the dishes in his hands. Sweat soaked his clothes at the back. After a moment of thought, Li Fang tightened his grip and bravely approached Feng Yongkang, manager, I have something to discuss with you. What is it? It's about the tofu issue. Li Fang lowered his head, not daring to look at Feng Yongkang, and his voice was quite low, the tofu in the kitchen was put there by me. I saw the tofu stall not far from our shop doing good business, so I thought maybe their tofu tasted better than Changji's. So I asked them to give me a piece to put in the kitchen. Since I was afraid that this could impact Changji Tofu Shop's business, I did not dare to tell anyone else, but quietly placed it there. I thought that if the tofu was good, it should be noticeable. Unfortunately, no one mentioned this matter in the past 2 days. Just then, one of the girls came to ask how the tofu was. I simply assumed that maybe we did not put enough tofu, and if we added more people might notice the difference, so I asked her to bring me more tofu. However, the girl took this the wrong way. She assumed I was cheating her. She not only scolded me but also demanded a refund for the tofu. Knowing her limitations, I did not argue and just gave her the money to let it pass. You saw what happened that day too, didn't you? You thought I was the kind of person who tricks others for money. You sharply rebuked me, and also docked a few days' wages. I considered myself unlucky for getting into trouble, so one did not argue too much. But now that the matter is out, it turns out that I put the tofu in the kitchen with the good intention of helping the restaurant do better business. Li Fang laid out his story. Then why didn't you tell us straight away? For the past few days, Chef Zhang and I have been trying to find out why the taste of our braised tofu changed according to Manager Qin and some of the customers. You didn't mention that it has anything to do with this. Feng Yongkang asked with furrowed eyebrows. I wanted to say it. Li Fang glanced at Zhang Yongchang before hastily lowering his head again, but in our restaurant, everyone knows that the manager respects Uncle Zhang very much and Uncle Zhang is related to Uncle Chang by marriage. If I directly told the truth, wouldn't that appear as if one was intentionally stealing business away from the Changji tofu shop? So, I thought about it and figured that if the tofu from the tofu stall was truly delicious, the manager would notice it in the future, and Uncle Zhang might also be willing to use it. So, I didn't dare to say it at the time. Hearing Li Fang's explanation, Feng Yongkang nodded slightly. You're right. I suppose I was indeed quick to judge. I saw you arguing with the girl and instantly blamed you. Although your methods were improper, and you didn't clarify the circumstances afterwards, you were indeed thinking of the restaurant's best interests. Considering this, I won't fine you. However, in the future, you should be forthcoming about everything. Even if you did something wrong out of goodwill, you should still tell us, otherwise, there could be misunderstandings. This matter only came to light today because we discussed it. If you hadn't spoken up, you would have continued to take the blame, wouldn't you? Yes, manager, you're absolutely right. I will remember that for the future. Li Fang nodded continuously, breathing a sigh of relief. He originally went to Changji Tofu shop to tell Chang Yuanda about the potential business threat, hoping that he would drive away the two girls and finally put an end to the matter. Who would have expected that instead of dealing with it himself, Chang Yuanda would seek out Zhang Yongchang, treating him as a willing participant. Moreover, Zhang also took a liking to their tofu and Fushan Tower wanting to replace Changji in the future. It led back to this incident. All his plans dropped to the ground and Li Fang had no choice but to come up with a hasty explanation to absolve himself. Seeing the situation, he felt relieved. Not only was he off the hook, but he also managed to recover his docked wages. Li Fang straightened his back. Ma Tong, standing nearby, was muttering in his heart. Good heavens, he made the wrong seem right. That's truly impressive. Is his heart as black as his actions? Zhang Yongchang glanced at Li Fang, whose face was brimming with satisfaction, and said, now that doesn't make sense. This morning, Chang Yuanda said it was you who told him that someone was stealing his tofu business and he sought my advice on how to handle it. What was the point of you telling him that? This, taken by surprise, Li Fang was speechless and his heart fluttered in panic. Chapter 51, 051, Chase Away. Chapter 51, Chapter 051, Chase Away. This Chang Yuanda sure has a loose tongue, revealing everything the moment he opens his mouth. You can't possibly say that all this was for our Fushan Tower, can you? Zhang Yongchang's eyes narrowed slightly. Most people in the restaurant were afraid of Zhang Yongchang, including Li Fang. He seldom dared to argue with him in normal times, let alone now when Li Fang was already upset. Sweat was pouring from his forehead. It seems to me that all the things you said earlier were just made-up stories. You pretended to think about Fushan Tower, lied to the young girl and then feared that the matter might be exposed. You thought that if you undermined Chang Cafe's business, they would be furious at you, and you dared not tell them the truth. But later, you became afraid that the tofu stall was getting better and might find out the truth sooner or later, so you went to Chang Yuanda and tried to get him to drive the girl away. Then you could rest easy. Unfortunately, Chang Yuanda had no idea and came to consult me. As a result, one took a liking to the tofu from the tofu stall and gave up on Chang Cafe. Then I recalled the unique taste of the braised tofu that day. You feared that it could implicate you, so you made up a bunch of stories to clear yourself and to play the good guy. Did I spell it out right? Zhang Yongchang asked, looking intently at Li Fang. His gaze was as sharp as a knife, making Li Fang feel as if he had been stabbed all over. Everything he said was accurate. Combined with Zhang Yongchang's questioning, Li Fang was so scared that his legs gave out, and he collapsed to the ground. Fine, one don't need to ask any further. I am pretty sure what happened. Zhang Yongchang stood up, clapping the dust off his hands from peeling sunflower seeds. Thinking too much can be dangerous. They might stir trouble in the restaurant. Shop manager, if it's not possible, just fire him. Well, Feng Yongkang hesitated for a moment, glancing at Li Fong. Li Fong had worked as a waiter in the restaurant for some years. Overall, he had no obvious flaws, and was very lively. He was handy to have around the restaurant. If Li Fong were laid off, although finding a replacement wouldn't be a problem with the wages offered by Fushan Tower, finding a suitable replacement could be challenging. Feng Yongkang hesitated and looked at Zhang Yongchang again. Seeing this, Li Fong knelt to the ground and tearfully said, "Shop manager, Uncle Chang, I admit that I was wrong this time. At the beginning, when the tofu seller approached me and gave me some money just to help sell tofu, I saw the benefits and pocketed the money in secret. I even thought of earning some more in the future. I was indeed blinded by greed. I am ready to accept your punishment, shop manager, and I fully understand my mistake. Nor would I dare to repeat it. But at that time, I forgot to bring back the tofu I had put in the kitchen. One was afraid that if Uncle Chang found out, he would penalize me, so I kept it a secret all the time. Just now, I was also momentarily confused and wanted to keep it a secret. All these were mistakes I made because I was confused. I know one was wrong. Please, shop manager and Uncle Chang, let it go this time. Dock me half a month, no, a full month's wages is fine. I won't dare to do it again in the future." Li Fong was sobbing uncontrollably, his speech intermittent. "Shop manager, although I made a mistake this time, overall I didn't cause any loss to our restaurant. As a reward for the honest work I used to do in our restaurant, could you just let it go this time, please?" Feng Yongkang was even more uncertain now, his mind fluctuating. Zhang Yongchang, however, glanced sideways at Li Fong, showing his disgust. "This time is not enough. When you add it all up, it hasn't been just once, right? Each time you were only thinking of yourself, not caring about others, which is why you're constantly lying. And you're so scheming that you took advantage of others and drove a perfectly good businesswoman away for your own self-interest. Your intentions were far from kind. In the end, you even tried to turn black into white, to gain some benefits. Wow, with such a heavy mind, I'm afraid that in the future if something happens, you would only think about yourself, regardless of others. Shop manager, we really can't keep such people." "But, brother," Feng Yongkang looked at Li Fong, still somewhat hesitant. "He has been working here for a long time. If it's just for an outsider's sake, it's not really worth it, don't you think so, brother?" It seems he was being rather harsh. People in the restaurant might think he was being harsh and reluctant to work properly in the future. Not worth it. Zhang Yongchang raised his eyebrows. "Okay then. If the manager thinks it's not a big deal, then there's nothing much I can do. It almost made me lose such delicious tofu, which obviously makes me unhappy. If the shop manager thinks it's not worth it, and wants to keep this employee, then keep him." Although Zhang Yongchang was clearly not happy, he softened his stance, which immediately lifted Feng Yongkang's spirits. But then Zhang Yongchang said, "If the shop manager thinks what one said is not important, then I don't see any reason to continue working at Fushan Tower. 1 foot 11 inches, pack my things and leave. As for the chef at Fushan Tower, shop manager can find someone else." Having said that, he rolled up his sleeves as if ready to leave. Upon seeing this, Feng Yongkang's face blanched. Fushan Tower was considered a big restaurant in town, but the business was indeed lacking. It couldn't compete with Rui Pavilion. It was only after he took great pains to invite Zhang Yongkang to be the chef that the business gradually improved and grew vigorously. It can be said that a large part of Fushan Tower's business success is due to Zhang Yongkang. That's why Feng Yongkang respected Zhang Yongkang so much. Any request he made in the restaurant that could be accommodated, Feng Yongkang always complied without a second thought. Although Zhang Yongkang was a little stubborn, he was diligent and honest in his work. During his many years of working at Fushan Tower, he seldom bragged about his achievements, was very polite to him as the manager, and never burdened him with any kitchen affairs. Feng Yongkang respected him even more. Feng Yongkang once thought that Zhang Yongkang would stay in Fushan Tower until he retired. Unexpectedly, Zhang Yongkang uttered such a sentence at this moment. Just for a piece of tofu, and for an outsider. Despite the shock, now that Zhang Yongkang had said so, Feng Yongkang had no choice but to make a quick decision. Without even glancing at Li Fong, Feng Yongkang hurriedly stopped Zhang Yongkang, whose face was gloomy. "Brother, calm down. What's the point of making such angry remarks? We've known each other for so many years, why would you say such things over a disagreement? If you think the employee is not capable, we can replace him, but you absolutely can't leave. Chapter 52, 052, damn it. Chapter 52, Chapter 052, damn it. If he could keep him, Feng Yongkang would be interested in retaining Li Fang, but if he had to choose between Zhang Yongchang and the current staff, Feng would naturally not hesitate at all. It's settled, get up. You've committed such a grave error, thinking you can still remain here with a thick skin, that's utterly impossible. Feng Yongkang looked at Li Fang sternly, saying, pack up your belongings, find the accountant, settle your wages, and leave promptly. After saying these words, he paused briefly and then added, it's already late today, so you can sleep here for one more night before leaving tomorrow. After all, Li was an old associate. Even if he was no longer needed, Feng didn't feel the need to make the situation overly tense. He believed he should still give him the necessary respect. Li Fang's face turned pale as he slumped down to the ground, not responding for a long time. He didn't know if it was mainly due to the heartbreaking reality or his self-blame and regret. Anyway, from now on, Li wouldn't be his staff member anymore. Feng didn't think too much about it and just walked away. Zhang Yongchang completely despised such people. He sneered and left without further ado. Ma Tong, who was left behind to watch this drama, couldn't help but feel like giving applause and cheering. Right. People with impure intentions deserved such an ending. As for Uncle Zhang, Ma used to think he was stubborn, bad-tempered, and hard to get along with, but now he seemed decent. At least his character was exceptional. While humoring a tune, Ma was considering how to build a good relationship with Zhang Yongchang. Li Fang remained slumped on the ground for a while, his complexion gradually changing from white to a pork liver color. Damn it. Starting tomorrow, Zhuang Qingning would need to supply tofu to the Fushan Tower, as well as reserve some tofu for selling in the village for Mrs. He. To meet this demand, she had to increase the amount of beans for soaking and grind more tofu. However, this could be an issue. While the tofu pot was large enough to cook so much soy milk, grinding and filtering the soy milk could be a strenuously laborious task. Considering this, Zhuang Qingning decided to bring Zhuang Qingsui along to the tofu workshop earlier to begin grinding the soy milk. As soon as they walked out the front door, they bumped into Zhuang Mingliang, who was carrying 2 bamboo baskets in his hands. Big Sister Ning. Zhuang Mingliang greeted Qingning with a smile on his face. He was round-faced and appeared honest by nature. When he smiled, his goodness seemed to shine through even more. What are you doing here? Zhuang Qingning laughed. Did your parents send you to deliver something to me? My parents said that you're going to grind so much tofu and feared that you may not be able to handle it alone. They asked me to help you. Even though one don't really know how to grind tofu, I can use my strength to assist in grinding the beans. Mingliang expressed, flexing his arm. They also said that tomorrow morning, one can directly take the tofu back, so you don't need to worry about arranging that. Mingliang, being 12 years old and 3 months younger than Qingning, had inherited his father Zhuang Yonghe's tall stature. He was already a full head taller than Qingning and appeared robust. Having long been accustomed to farm work, even youngsters like Mingliang possessed impressive physical strength. Qingning was even more delighted when she heard this news. It must be that Mrs. He was worried about her workload and hence asked Mingliang to help. I was just thinking about this matter and planning to go to the mill earlier to start grinding the beans. Coincidentally, you're here, so let's do it together, said Qingning with a smile. All right then, responded Mingliang with a nod, and then headed to the mill with Qingning. From soaking beans, grinding soy milk, helping in starting fire, to finally pressing the tofu into shape. Mingliang, being tall and strong, was also diligent and quick. He handled more than half of the tofu grinding tasks. Here are today's tofu, I've packed them all for you, just take them back. Qingning finished packing the right quantity of tofu into the bamboo baskets, then she added an extra 2 pounds of tofu on top. Take this back and cook it for lunch. I don't need, Mingliang refused, extending his hand. If you refuse it, one wouldn't dare to let you help me grind tofu in the future. Zhuang Qingning covered the tofu with a cloche, not giving Mingliang any chance to resist. Take these back first, and also tell your uncle and aunt. I've been making more and more tofu, and I can certainly use extra help here. You can continue to help me for now and see how tofu sales are going. If things continue to be promising, one will give you daily wages. Mingliang, who was usually at a loss for words, considered this and eventually nodded. All right, I'll talk to my parents when one get home. He then picked up the 2 bamboo baskets, one in each hand, and declared his departure. Then, big sister Ning, I'm leaving now. All right, take care on your way. Okay. Mingliang walked away a few steps, then turned back with a laugh. If you have anything you need help with at home, just call for Mingho and me. All right. Qing Ning responded with a smile, her eyebrows curved. She saw Mingliang out of the tofu workshop, then tidied it up, and brought Mrs. Wen's tofu pudding and tofu into the kitchen. When Baisan arrived with the bullock cart, she put basket after basket full of tofu on the cart, ready to set off to town. Miss Ning, one heard that Chef Zhang from Fushan Tower has bought tofu from you. Baisan extended his whip, cracking it with a resounding snap in the air. Uncle Bai heard about it. Qing Ning asked with a smile. I went to the town to buy something yesterday afternoon, and one heard it from Aunt Lu who sells pretty good stuff. Answered Bai, Chef Zhang, I've dealt with him a couple of times before. He's stubborn and likes to compete, but he's straightforward. Now that he's decided to buy tofu from you, probably the entire Fushan Tower will only use your tofu, no one else's. Also, I heard that Chef Zhang used to work as a cook in the county town. I guess he must know many restaurants and diners there. If he's willing to spread the word, your tofu could be sold in the county town. The more Bai spoke, the happier he became. His mouth was almost spread to his ears. He said to Qing Ning, Miss Ning, in my opinion, you should rent a storefront in town for selling tofu. It would be more convenient. Otherwise, it would be less convenient during rainy days. I've been considering this matter. However, one think that first, the amount of tofu one produce every day isn't great enough for a full day's sales. Half a day's sales would have to do, and for the remaining half of the day, the shop would have to be closed, which seems wasteful. Secondly, setting up a stall in town doesn't cost much, but if I were to rent a shop, it would mean extra costs. Chapter 53, 053, Broom Star, 10,000 coin reward from Butterfly Pea Flower for extra updates. Chapter 53, Chapter 053, Broom Star, 10,000 coin reward from Butterfly Pea Flower for extra updates. Zhuang Qingning said with a smile, let's wait until I can really start selling tofu. Once I have enough money, one can rent a storefront. There is no rush. That makes sense. Baisan felt that Zhuang Qingning's words were very reasonable and nodded in approval, then burst into laughter again. It's amazing that someone so young knows to play it safe and steady. This kind of prudence and carefulness is truly rare. He had been working in the town for many years and had seen all sorts of people, especially young people who tried to make big strides forward as soon as they saw some success. All too often, they ended up spreading themselves too thin and failing because they took on too much. People like Zhuang Qingning, who could take their time and proceed carefully, were indeed rare. These were the type of people who were capable of building up a large-scale business. A grin spread across Baisan's face as he thought about this. He waved his arms in the air and whipped up a spiral with his whip. When they arrived in town and set up the stall, Zhuang saw off Baisan, who took away his tofu, and then took the tofu that Fushan Tower ordered to a backyard designated by Zhang Yongchang. Lian Rong, who was working under Zhang Yongchang in the kitchen, saw Zhuang Qingning coming over. He ran over and took the bamboo basket from her. This is the tofu Uncle Zhang asked for, isn't it? Yes, Chef Zhang's tofu. A total of 40 caddies, full weight. If you're not sure, you can weigh it again. Zhuang Qingning said with a smile. I've been at Fushan Tower for several years now, and every morning I have to receive all sorts of vegetables and meat delivered from various places. One can tell if the weight is right as soon as I pick it up. Lian Rong lifted up the tofu in the bamboo basket, laughed, and said, if I'm not mistaken, this is slightly less than 41 caddies of tofu, right? Zhuang Qingning was suddenly surprised. He was not wrong. When measuring the tofu, Zhuang Qingning had added the pieces one by one until it was a little more than 40 caddies, not quite an extra caddy, and she left it at that. She never expected him to be able to tell so accurately. You're really amazing, it is indeed 40 caddies and 7 tails, a bit on the high side. Zhuang Qingning looked the man up and down, smiling and saying, "Your hands are like a scale. An extremely accurate scale, that is." Flattered by Zhuang Qingning's praise, Lian Rong laughed. "It's just because I've dealt with a lot of it, my hands are used to it. It's not worth mentioning. But your tofu, my master praised it all day yesterday, and even mentioned it to the shop manager. By all means, Fushan Tower will not use tofu from anywhere else in the future. Here's some insider info." Lian Rong lowered his voice and continued, "In order to use your tofu, my master pushed away Changji's tofu. He's actually related by marriage to the shopkeeper of Changji Tofu Store, Uncle Chang. He didn't give any face to Uncle Chang, that's how much he has taken a liking to your tofu. In the future, you must keep refining this tofu. As long as the tofu tastes good, you won't have to worry about making money." Zhuang Qingning was surprised again. Previously, the waiter who cheated her out of some money had told her that Fushan Tower used tofu from Changji Tofu Store. She thought it was just because Changji Tofu Store was very famous and the town's folks recognized that brand. She never thought there would be such a deep relationship involved. It seems that Chef Zhang is indeed a true cook and only cares about the quality of the ingredients, regardless of where it comes from or who it's related to. Now Zhuang Qingning could understand why people always described Chef Zhang as being stubborn. "Rest assured, my young friend, in the future the tofu supplied to Fushan Tower will be of top quality. I will not let Chef Zhang down." Zhuang Qingning replied with a laugh. Seeing that Zhuang Qingning was cordial and had a pleasant appearance, and because of Zhang Yongchang's fondness for her tofu, Lian Rong began to like Zhuang Qingning more. He followed the manager's instructions and settled the bill for today's tofu delivery. As for the price, Zhuang Qingning offered the same discount as she did for Rui Pavilion. Seeing that she offered a discount spontaneously, and even suggested that if the quantity supplied increased in the future, she could offer an even lower price and refund the previous difference, Lian Rong admired Zhuang's business sense and praised her even more. While the two were talking, suddenly there was a loud bang as a door in the corner of the courtyard was kicked open. Li Fang, with a gloomy expression on his face, walked towards the door carrying his own bundle. After last night's incident, all the workers in Fushan Tower knew the whole story about Li Fang. Everyone looked down on him, partly because Li Fang had a slippery way of doing things, often stepping on others to gain face in front of Feng Yongkang. Many disliked this kind of behavior, thus, when he was leaving, no one seemed to care enough to bid him farewell. They were all fair-weather friends. Li Fang hadn't even left yet, and the tea had already gone cold. Li Fang grumbled and fussed alone in his room for half the day. He wished he could smash everything up, but remembered that Feng Yongkang was a money-minded man, and if he smashed the items, he would probably have to pay for them. So, he had to let it go. But when he thought about how he had worked at the Fushan Tower for so long, and Feng Yongkang heartlessly threw him out without considering their past relationship, he felt indignant again. Now, hearing voices outside, he glanced through the crack of the door and saw Zhuang Qingning talking with Lian Rong about tofu money with a satisfied smile on her face. This only fanned the flames of his anger. It was all this damned girl's fault. If it weren't for her showing up that day, how could he be in such a predicament now? She was a disaster, a broom star. Whoever got involved with her was bound to be unlucky. With a furious look on his face, Li Fang glared at Zhuang with rage. His gaze was so intense that it seemed as if he wanted to pierce two bloody holes into Zhuang's body to vent his anger. Being so maliciously stared at by someone she had a quarrel with earlier, Zhuang Qingning, of course, wouldn't back down. She looked back at him defiantly, not yielding an inch. The intensity of her gaze made Li Fang feel a bit uneasy. "What are you looking at?" Li Fang assumed Zhuang Qingning was here to ridicule him. His face turned the color of liver, and he shouted at Zhuang Qingning, "Thanks to you, I've been kicked out by the manager. You must be happy now. I'm just curious, isn't it just 2 coins for a piece of tofu? If you lose out, you lose out. There's an old saying that it's a blessing to suffer loss. You can't even stand to lose the slightest bit, how can you expect to be blessed in the future? Dream on. I'm the only one who brings in wages in my family. My parents are old, and my elder brother and sister-in-law are not filial. They rely solely on my income. But thanks to you, I lost my job for no reason. You've done such a wicked thing, aren't you afraid of karma in the future?" Li Fang grumbled and swore. Zhuang Qingning listened with a frown. When she glanced at Zhuang Qingning, she let out a cold laugh. I don't know if I'll suffer any retribution in the future, but one do know someone is being punished right now. It must be because he did something bad. Part 3 of the series ends here. Thank you for watching and listening. If you find it interesting, please give us a like, a comment and a subscription so that we have the motivation to make the next videos.